Hi everyone and welcome to Bonnie Astrology. Today we're discussing the astrology of September 2024 and what it means for your zodiac sign. September 2024 brings eclipse season and the first eclipse in a series of eclipses in Pisces and Virgo, leading all the way up to 2027. So this month is bringing new storylines to our lives, both personally and collectively. As always, if you do enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up to let me know that you like it. And if you want to subscribe to the channel for regular astrology content from me, please feel free to do so. And if you want to contact me or follow me on any of my socials, they're listed in the description box below. So before I get into the horoscopes for the individual zodiac signs, I'd like to take some time to go through the actual astrology of September 2024 and what it means for us collectively. I do have a video up on the new moon in Virgo happening on the 2nd or 3rd of September, depending on where you are in the world and what it means for your zodiac sign. So if you want to check that out, that is listed below. A lot of things are happening this month in September that are really quite significant, and September starts off with a very significant plot twist or two, because on September 1st, Uranus is going to go retrograde in the sign of Taurus. Uranus is going retrograde at 27 degrees of Taurus. So if you have anything at around 26, 27, 28 degrees of the fixed signs, that would be Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, or Aquarius, you may feel this the most. But when Uranus goes retrograde, oftentimes the day of, the day before, or the day after, we can notice some significant shakeups, some significant changes. We can notice some unexpected plot twists, events, some explosive energy out in the world. So this can be a day that brings some change to us. Uranus going retrograde, it's always going to be a period of reflection, as it is retrograde energy. And what we reflect on is where things that are regarded as normal have actually become outdated and stale in our lives. So being willing to open up to change, to challenge the norms, to try something else, to try something new, to go against the grain, so to speak. And it can also bring some wake-up calls on what it is that needs to change. For us collectively, of course, this is happening in the sign of Taurus, so this may be surrounding food, the food industry. It can be surrounded farming, agriculture, or it can be surrounding the banking and financial system. There can be some shocks and changes happening with those type of themes around the time of Uranus retrograde. But that's not all. Pluto actually re-enters Capricorn as well on the 1st of September. So the two of the slowest moving outer planets having significant change on the one day means that this could be a very significant time. The first week of September can bring very significant changes to us all collectively. The reason that Pluto re-entering Capricorn is so significant, because Pluto will be in Capricorn until late November of this year, doing its final stint in the sign of Capricorn. This is the final hurrah, with Pluto bringing transformation, change, and a purging energy, and also some revealing of secrets, of course, to the Capricorn side of the universe. So that can be institutions, hierarchies, governments, large organizational bodies, corporations, capitalism, the patriarchy. These type of themes can come up with Pluto re-entering Capricorn. It's about closing out old cycles and looking deeply and honestly, very authentically, at what is no longer working, what needs to change, and going through this process of purging and letting go. This can also be to do with leadership or people holding very unbalanced and very unequal degrees of power. And you'll find that equality becomes very important in September, because we are, of course, experiencing the equinox on the 21st, or maybe the exact date is the 22nd. 22nd this year is the equinox, is a Latin term that means equal night. So this is about equality, with Pluto retrograding at the time at the final degree of Capricorn. While we have the equinox, it can be a case that we're really reflecting on power imbalances and power structures, and why small percentages of people have this abundance of power and this abundance of faith, or lack thereof at this point, to make decisions for the wider group of people. So this can be about honestly reflecting on what needs to change and being very, very exposed to what is no longer working, to the point we can't unsee it, with Pluto re-entering Capricorn. So there's a lot of wake-up calls right off the bat in September, a lot of waking up to different things or understanding more about what we're waking up to, both collectively and in our own lives. Pluto re-entering Capricorn, it is a final hurrah, it is a final it's about closing out a final chapter, and you may have to confront some fears, you may have to confront some doubts, some suspicions, you might have to do some letting go wherever the Capricorn part of your chart is. And this doesn't have to be literally letting go of something. It can be letting, externally or materially. It can be very internal with Pluto. Pluto is a very psychological planet. So you might be letting go of outdated attitudes or doing a lot of shadow work in the Capricorn part of your chart. You're already doing the work on the Aquarius part, as we do have Pluto transiting Aquarius for most of this year, but this is the final stint in Capricorn, so this is really quite significant and quite karmic. Capricorn does answer to Saturn, so there's a very karmic twist to this, and more emphasis on letting go as Saturn is in Pisces, the final sign of the zodiac. So there is a lot of finality associated with September, October, and November. Beautiful to coincide with the eclipses. With Pluto being retrograde in Capricorn, if you have any placements at 29 degrees of Capricorn or 0 degree of the fixed signs, Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo, or Taurus, you may find that you are most impacted by this change. You're going through this final period of letting go. There could have been significant change in your life. I have to say, a lot of people that have placements at 29 degrees of the cardinals or 0 degrees to 1 degrees of the fixed signs have been going through this year a period of loss, endings, transition, confronting deep-seated fears and vulnerabilities in their lives. So if you're in that bracket of people, you may be finding that you're really ready to let go of something now. You're really ready to let go of what's no longer working and what's no longer serving you at this time, and maybe having to face some fears as well. I mentioned before, I do have a video up on the new moon in Virgo, which is happening on either the 2nd or the 3rd of September, depending on where you are in the world, of course. But setting intentions around this new moon is favourable because it is going to be a time where we're more focused on committing to these new beginnings. There can be a new start in our Virgo houses, but whatever the new start is, it's a time to be practical, to pay attention to the detail, and it's a time to be dedicated, to be honest, and to be devoted. And whatever it is that you're starting at this time, making sure that it's healthy for you, making sure that it is good for you, making sure that it makes you happy as well is going to be important at the time of this Virgo new moon. And if you're wondering why I'm saying make you happy, it's because Mercury, the ruler of this new moon, will be in Leo. So what makes you happy could be a little bit different to what you expected. It could be a little bit of a shock to the people around you, or it could bring some surprising information with it. But having an element of joy in whatever it is that you're starting and whatever details that you're paying attention to at this time is going to be quite important with this new moon. It is opposite Saturn, so I think for a lot of people this can be a new job, a new habit, a new way of looking after your health or your well-being. One thing that is not so great about the new moon in Virgo is that there is a Mars-Neptune square. Astrologers affectionately refer to this as a fog of war, a foggy war. So it might be that you could get into a conflict at this time and then realize you're not so sure what you're fighting about. You could get very confused about what it is that you need to do next, what action that you need to take. It's not the best time to take any affirmative action. It would be better to wait a couple of days while Mars is squaring Neptune, because you can take some steps that you really don't understand. You don't know why you're doing it. You don't know if it's a good idea. You're not sure which way to go. There could be some literal fog upon you. There can be weather issues around this time. I remember the last time that Mars was squaring Neptune while Mars was in Gemini and Neptune was in Pisces, which was March, I believe, of 2023. I was flying to London, got stuck in a snowstorm. The snowstorm held up traffic so long that by the time I got to the airport, they wouldn't let me check in my bag and I had to go to London with no clothes. That can be an example of how it plays out. There's worse places to be stuck with no clothes because, obviously London's great for shopping. But I digress from the point of this, which is that there can be unexpected actual fogs, weather conditions that get in the way of what it is that you're trying to do. With Mars and Gemini, this can be surrounding travel, this can be surrounding communication issues, not seeing the details and getting a bit lost in the process. So just be mindful around the 3rd, 4th of September that it can be a little bit confusing and a little bit foggy if you're looking to push forward on something. It's not the best time to push forward and to be aware that you just might not have all the details or all the facts. even though Mercury is direct this month. And speaking of Mercury, Mercury enters Virgo on the 9th, which is really positive. This is where we're more comfortable with the details. This is where we can really see what needs to happen, be very particular, be more mindful about what it is that we say, more mindful about what it is that we need to do to make things work. Mars also changes signs this month. Mars moves into Cancer on the 4th. And although Mars is not necessarily so comfortable in Cancer, you may find with Mars being here that you're wanting to take action on the home. You're maybe wanting to renovate, to spruce up your house, to spruce up your property, to take action on property matters. This can bring a little bit of back and forth conflict or irritation with family members though. And Mars is going to re-enter Cancer because this is going to be part of the retrograde cycle. Mars goes retrograde in December in the sign of Leo, but will retrograde back into Cancer. So we have a longer storyline here. It's worth paying attention to the Cancerian part of your chart this month because it will be reactivated from January to April 2025. So we're already getting a bit of a preview into the new year, and you might find that anything that comes up in the Cancer part of your chart surrounding energy, action, maybe some irritation, maybe some conflict could be brought up again in the new year, particularly in the spring. Of course, one of the main stars of the show in September is that lunar eclipse in Pisces, which is happening on September 18th. If your birthday falls in and around September 18th, so 17th, 18th, 19th, you may notice that there's going to be some significant change coming for you in the year that follows. But for anyone who has Pisces or Virgo in their big three, this is going to be very significant for you. It is significant for all of us because this is going to be the first in the Virgo Pisces set of eclipses, which actually last until 2027. The nodes shift signs into Pisces and Virgo, the North Node going into Pisces, the South Node going into Virgo in January of 2025. But we have eclipses in those signs up until 2027, and we have 7 eclipses happening in this set of signs. So this is going to be part of a wider storyline. It can absolutely, as it's the first eclipse, give you a preview of what is to come, give you a preview of maybe new characters, new storylines, new plots, new plot developments in your life, and also for us collectively. This is going to focus very much on the health side of the collective. So Virgo and Pisces is the health axis, so physical health, emotional health, mental health, and significant changes can be occurring with these type of themes. If you look back to the new moon that was in Pisces back in March of 2024, if you set some new intentions or you began something new around this time, you may be noticing that it is coming to fruition around the time of this eclipse. It can be quite emotional because it's in the sign of Pisces and it's in a conjunction to Neptune. So you might be noticing that this month dreams are exceptionally vivid. A focus on healing is exceptionally poignant this month. You might be really getting in touch with your emotions, even if you're not necessarily an emotional person. You could be getting in touch with your emotions, and you could be looking to figure out in your life what is fantasy and what is not, where you have been deluded or where you've become disillusioned with the Neptunian themes. But it is going to really give you, even if it's just an intuitive sense, a preview of what storylines might be coming in your life with this particular cycle of eclipses. It is worth noting as well that this eclipse is in a positive sextile to Uranus, which can bring positive change and a willingness to adapt with whatever changes are coming up at the time of this lunar eclipse, and maybe feeling a little bit liberated by whatever is coming your way. The Sun enters Libra on the 22nd, and while up until then we're very focused on the detail, on work, on health, on getting organized, on being productive, the Sun entering Libra is where we start to seek more balance. We start to seek more connection to others. We focus on partnerships. We focus on relationships. And of course, the Sun shifting into Libra coincides with the equinox. As I mentioned before, the equinox is the Latin term for equal night. So we're looking for more balance, more equality in our relationships, in our endeavors, and in our lifestyles. Figuring whatever you're doing too much of or too little of, and then correcting that by either doing less or doing more, but seeking balance nonetheless at the time of the equinox. And as we're descending into the darker days in the northern hemisphere, at least, this is a time to focus on what you're grateful for, what you're grateful to have. It is a time of harvest, so figuring out and taking a moment to to bask and reflect on what you've achieved this year, what has come to you this year that you're grateful for, what you really enjoy and what you really have with this equinox. One thing that I do want to mention this month is that while we have planets shifting into Libra, they are going to connect with the South Node. Now, the South Node is a very karmic body. It is associated with the past, whether that be the past in our own lives, it's associated with past lives. The nodes are known as the nodes of fate. They represent karma, they represent destiny. And the South Node can be where you feel kind of familiar, where you feel deja vu. So there can be a lot of that this month. You can find yourself meeting people that you have an instant sense of deja vu. They feel familiar. If you've ever noticed with people that you meet where you just feel like you've known them forever, there's oftentimes a South Node connection in synastry. There's a sense of a past life, of unfinished business that you may work out with that person in this life. It can come up a lot in family charts. You know, if you have South Node conjunct someone's Mercury, it could be that you were siblings in a past life. South Node conjunct the Sun can be a father in a past life, etc., etc. The most notorious one is Venus conjunct the South Node. Comes up a lot in the charts of people who have relationships because they had a past life relationship and it's very familiar. A couple that I know who were married for 60 years until one of them unfortunately died this year had an exact Venus South Node conjunction. Some astrologers read it as negative in synastry, but I've observed it as being actually very positive. They just picked up where they left off from the last lifetime and they just knew each other. They just knew. So it can be really beautiful in synastry, but it can also, of course, then sometimes be too familiar and keep you too much in your comfort zone if you don't have North Node synastry to balance it out. But that's a synastry lesson in itself. This month, what I'm saying is that you might notice that you meet people that feel very familiar, or there's a sense of deja vu, particularly around the, what date is it? The 3rd of September. So around the new moon, you might interact with people that you feel a sense of deja vu and familiarity with, while Venus connects with the South Node. You might also hear from people from the past, with Mercury connecting with the South Node on the 29th. The Sun and Mercury both connect with the South Node on the 29th. So you might hear from people from the past. You might get clarity about the past. You might get clarity in a past event or a cycle or a chapter that you want to break or close out. It can also be that you connect with people that feel very familiar, or you have opportunities to use your past life talents, your natural gifts, your natural talents. And a lot of the time you can feel very, a sense of belonging with this South Node energy. So it can be a very interesting month in terms of karma and destiny, with it being eclipse season and with the South Node picking up with the other planets. It does bring the sense of deja vu, and it can be, you know, there can be events or people or circumstances that coincide with our soul's natural path, and we feel like this was meant to be, or we feel like this was meant to happen, or we feel like this was meant to end. Whatever it is that is happening at the time of these South Node conjunctions for you, I just wanted to mention it because it can be a time when you're able to let go of the past, or it can be a time when you're able to feel some sort of comfort and familiarity, either through a person, an event, or something that you do, a natural gift of yours. So I'm going to pull a tarot card for the month of September just to get a tarot message for the month ahead. Do let me know what you're planning in September, how it goes for you with the lunar eclipse in Pisces, what's happening in the Pisces part of your chart at the moment, and just how you're finding the month in general. I think it's quite an interesting month, but I mean interesting in a good way. I find that August was incredibly challenging and tumultuous for a lot of people. It was frustration, but it was also stagnation, and yet it was also change and breaking free. You know, sometimes breaking free can actually be kind of unpleasant in the beginning. So I find with this month, there's a lot more opportunity for fresh starts, new storylines, and the type of change that's going to feel fated, new. And also with the South Node, reconnecting to past versions of yourself or past relationships, or maybe, and that doesn't have to be romantic, by the way. It can just be reconnecting with people that maybe you've lost touch with for a little while or a long while, or reconnecting with parts of yourself, you know, talents that you have that never got to be utilized in Virgo season. We had the Knight of Cups. So this month can be with Venus being in Libra until let me see what date it was, 22nd, with Venus enters Scorpio. There's a lot of opportunity for romance, for love, for connection, for enjoying Libra season to connect with others, to put your heart out there, to date, to connect with your partner, to put romantic propositions forward. It's quite a nice energy when Venus is in Libra for partnerships and relationships. So I feel like this Knight of Cups is very focused on connecting with others and seeking some love and romance in your life with Libra season. Not forgetting that a lunar eclipse conjunct Neptune can be about falling in love. It can be rose-tinted glasses, which is of course part of most falling in love processes. It can be sometimes playing into the fantasy and sometimes being a bit delulu as well. But with the Knight of Cups, I think a lot of this is about following your heart and your intuition when it comes to matters of the heart or creative or artistic endeavors. I have to say, I love the lunar eclipse for artists and creatives because it is very poetic and fantastical. So I think for a lot of people this can be a beautiful time, even if you're not doing it as a profession, if you're doing it as a hobby, if you're doing it as catharsis, to bring a little bit of creativity into your life, to go to an open mic, to write a poem, to buy yourself flowers or something like that. Do something romantic and artistic in your life this month with that lunar eclipse in Pisces. That is what I have for September. The timestamps are listed below for your zodiac signs. As always, I do suggest you watch your ascendant for the most accurate astrological predictions. But if you want to watch your sun as well, that is entirely up to you. There can be some meaning and there can be some manifestation when it comes to your sun and your moon, depending on what is going on for you this month. But that is what I have for September. I hope you all have a good one and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Aries, welcome to September. So Aries, this month for you has a little bit of a back to school flavour. It is Virgo season right up until the 22nd, and we have a new moon there on the 3rd of September. And this new moon brings an opportunity for a fresh start, a clean slate when it comes to not only your work but your health. So I think for a lot of you this month there may be a bit more of a focus on going to the gym, eating good food, eating well, taking time to meditate, taking time to go for a walk. Really bringing in some healthy habits this month, Aries, wouldn't go amiss. It'll certainly help you feel better with any pressures or any concerns surrounding work in general, because that new moon is in opposition to Saturn. Saturn rules your 10th house, it rules your professional life, and currently in Pisces it is transiting the 12th house. So for a lot of you Aries, you're probably doing a lot of work behind the scenes. You're probably doing a lot of work that nobody sees, or perhaps you're maybe taking a sabbatical, taking some time off from work, and this is primarily about health for you. But whatever the case may be, this new moon is a really good time to be practical, be dedicated, be honest, and be focused on what details need to be implemented when it comes to your health and your wellness. So whether that is something simple as getting your steps in a day, making sure that you get fresh air wherever you're working, making sure that you're taking breaks, or making sure that you're moving your body or eating well is going to be very important to you this month, Aries. And as I say, some of you could actually be starting a new job or starting a new role or providing a new service as part of your job. And this could be something that, as I say, with Saturn there in the 12th, you've been working on behind the scenes, you maybe been contemplating behind the scenes, or you're ready for a fresh chapter when it comes to your health and your wellness or your work, Aries. You might also be in September starting to rethink how you make money. Uranus is going to go retrograde from the 1st in your 2nd house. And Uranus is a very innovative planet. So when it goes retrograde, we start to reflect on the changes that we could make. It's not necessarily so direct about making changes themselves, but you might start thinking about old ideas on how to make money that you didn't use before, or you might reflect on the different options that you have available to you, possibly based on the internet with Uranus, or possibly just doing something a little bit different or outside of the box. You're probably going to want to challenge the norms of how you make money. Sometimes with Uranus as a transit, it can be a little bit up and down. It can bring unexpected ways of making money. It can bring money to you unexpectedly. It can shake up your finances as well, and sometimes it can bring unexpected payments or unexpected expenses as well, just something to mind. But don't be afraid to question the norm on how you make money, or maybe be open to something a little bit different. It might also be a time to reflect on what changes you need to make financially in order to feel a bit more free, whether that is mentally or whether that is setting yourself up for the future, Aries. The same day, on the 1st of September, Pluto retrogrades back into your 10th house. And again, we have this professional flavour of what is happening for you professionally, what's happening for you career-wise. This is closing out a chapter. And this chapter has gone on since 2008. Aries, a lot of you may have had, with Pluto, more opportunity to step into powerful positions, to be your own boss, to be a boss, to be in a position of authority. Some of you may have had fame, some of you may have had significant recognition, and equally some of you may have had power struggles. You might have had jealousy, you might have had envy from other people, you could have had challenging encounters with people in positions of power also. With Pluto re-entering this house for you and being at the crisis degree, Aries, it's worth thinking about, what do you need to change there? What are the closing changes that you're going to make out? What are the finishing touches professionally, especially when it comes to your relationship to power, how you feel you have it, how you feel you navigate it, where you do and do not have it. With Pluto, it's very authentic, it's very real. So really looking at your career, looking at your professional life, looking at your goals and figuring out what needs to change. Maybe for some Aries risings, this is retirement. Maybe for some Aries risings, this is you've worked for such a long time, you've gone off on maternity and you think, well, actually, I don't want to do this the way that I did it before. Or maybe you've become your own boss and you're thinking, okay, well, what about my life outside of this place? You know, you're just rethinking what needs to change for you to be, to feel like you're doing yourself a favor, to feel like you're being true to yourself and being very honest on a psyche level. You know, this is something you feel in your bones that you can't go against with Pluto retrograde. Mars enters your family zone from the 4th, and it's going to be there for the rest of the month. It goes into Leo in November, but will retrograde back into Cancer in January of 2025 until April. So pay attention, because this is actually a longer transit than you think with Mars entering your family sector. For a lot of people, whenever Mars goes into your family sector, it can bring a bit of friction, a bit of irritation. You're more likely to be irritated by your family, you're more likely to have discourse with your family, but there's also likely to be more activity with family. So there's more opportunities for family gatherings, for family events. You could be putting your energy into the home. With Mars being there, you could be literally working on the home, renovating, painting, cleaning, construction areas, anything like that. But again, as I say, this is a longer cycle. So pay attention to this, because Mars in Cancer will be part of the retrograde cycle. So you may be thinking about things to do. If you start work on your house, it may slow. It may slow down in the early part of 2025. The first couple of months, you might notice things stall or things need to be reinvestigated again. Or if there's conflict with a family member, there can be a little bit more back and forth on what to do to resolve it. That's one way that this can play out as well, Aries. Mercury goes back into your 6th house from the 9th, and it's worthwhile really paying attention to the detail at this time. Making lists will be your best friend. I know that sounds very Virgo. Making lists will be your best friend from the 9th. Right up until the 26th, when Mercury is here, you can get a lot done, you can get organized, you've great ideas, you're better at communicating. Try to make the most of this, because it's very positive for health, work, and wellness. So really thinking about your routine and having some great ideas on what you could change. Aries is going to come up for you because Mercury is very happy in Virgo. The full moon lunar eclipse. Okay, so this is a big deal for everybody. It's a big deal for you, even if you're thinking, okay, this is in the 12th house. The 12th house is the blind spot. It's behind the scenes. It's hidden enemies. It's self-sabotage. It's seclusion. It's isolation. Yikes. Okay, but doesn't have to manifest that way for you, Aries. What it can actually be with this full moon lunar eclipse is that potentially you're wrapping up a chapter of isolation, or wrapping up a chapter of being alone in your life. Say, for example, for some of you, that could be maternity leave, or that could be that you were perhaps in hospital for health reasons, or maybe you've just been single for a very long time. You might be sort of thinking, okay, I don't know if I want to be this isolated, or I don't know if I want to be this alone. And particularly from a relationship perspective, Aries, you know, we're looking into October, we have a solar eclipse in your 7th house of relationships that has a grand trine going on at the same time. There's opportunities for new relationships in your life, Aries, as well. So maybe for some of you, it's wrapping up a period of being alone. For others of you, I just think this is an incredibly spiritual house, the 12th house. And you might be deciding under this lunar eclipse that you want to let go, you want to purge some old fears. You really want to get to grips with your unconscious mind and see where you're sabotaging yourself, what patterns are playing out in your life. You may be exposed to some patterns that play out in your life. And as uncomfortable as that may be, it's an incredibly rewarding thing. You have Saturn there. It's incredibly rewarding because then they don't have control over you. Then you don't actually have this backseat driver navigating the show in whatever direction you want to go, Aries. It's quite positive to have this sort of clear out energy. And for some of you, it could, with that conjunction to Neptune, absolutely be a spiritual awakening of sorts, where you start to feel more connected with the divine. You start to feel like you are more in touch with your emotions. Do think back to March of 2024 and see what you were starting around then, or what you were thinking about, or what themes were coming up for you, what intentions were being set, because they might manifest under this lunar eclipse. It might also be a time where you're getting to grips on whether something is fantasy or reality due to that conjunction of Neptune. And also it may expose some hidden enemies. Usually the hidden enemies, truth be told, are within ourselves. But if there are any people orchestrating behind the scenes negatively towards you, they can be exposed and released under the eclipse. And I think this would be, if you do have somebody that's exposed, it for some reason or another may benefit you financially to let them go, to let go of that energy. It may also just boost your confidence. You might realize that someone's kind of been draining you of your energy and you didn't even realize it, Aries. And we then have the Sun entering your partnership sector on the 22nd. Venus is in your partnership sector until the 22nd as well. So we have a lot of focus this month on relationships for you, Aries. When the Sun enters Libra on the 22nd, most of your energy is going to go towards a partnership, a relationship of some kind, whether that is business, whether that is romantic, spouse, best friend, or just relationships in general. It doesn't have to be one specific person, but it's usually a one-on-one relationship. You might find yourself connecting more with someone, you've more energy for them, you have more time for them. Venus being in that sector until the 22nd is a beautiful time for love. It's a beautiful time for relationships, getting on better with your partner. I will say the South Node is there, and Venus and the South Node connect under the new moon in Virgo on the 2nd. So just bear in mind, the 2nd or the 3rd, Venus connects to the South Node on the 3rd. Just bear in mind that you might need, if you're wanting to connect more deeply to your partner, a potential partner, or be in a relationship in general, you're probably going to have to let go of some pattern, some fear, some barrier to connecting with someone authentically. The South Node tends to dissolve. So whenever it forms a connection to Venus, it's about letting go of any beliefs that you might have or patterns you might have linked to being unlovable, not being worthy of a relationship, etc., etc., etc. It can also be about clearing out a relationship in your life to make way for something better. That can be how it manifests. But I do think for a lot of you, this is a very positive time. For a lot of you, there's also opportunity maybe to go back to a relationship from the past. And I just want to mention something as my study as an astrologer. Usually with South Node energy, it's where something is unfinished. And if this is hitting anything, the South Node is going to be around 7, 6, 5 degrees of Libra this month. So if you have anything at that, if you have any planets or angles at that, the likelihood of reconnecting is more fated and significant. But a lot of the time with the South Node, it brings back anything that is unfinished. And that can be a best friend, that can be an old best friend, it can be someone you lost touch with. So for example, when the South Node went over my moon, I reconnected with 2 old friends. Neither of them know each other. I reconnected with a friend from university. I reconnected with a friend from school. This was a long time ago. My moon's in Aquarius. But whenever the South Node went over my Mars, had an ex return. Whenever the South Node went over my Sun, a relationship ended. The South Node is actually quite significant as an energy. So you might find with this particular transit that you reconnect with someone from the past, you reconnect with someone where there's unfinished business, or you reconnect with someone who you've known in a past life, or someone who's actually, a lot of the time it can be past life people, because I've noticed every time I've had a South Node transit of a personal planet, I meet somebody new in some capacity who ends up being pretty significant. As I said, with the South Node going over my moon, heard from people from the past, reconnected with old friends, but also made a new one who I had South Node synastry with, who's been in my life ever since. So you can find new and old relationships come up with the South Node, but there's something about unfinished business, whether that's from the last life or this life. I just had to give you the example there because I think for you it's pretty significant. I'm not touching on the South Node as much for the other signs, but because it's in your relationship sector, I think it matters quite a bit for you, Aries. So you might reconnect with people. It doesn't have to be exes, by the way. It can just be old friends, old relationships, or people that you just didn't get to do whatever it is that you were meant to do together in this lifetime. But you're certainly going to be seeking more balance in relationships, Aries, with the equinox coming up. For a lot of you, you're going to be finding that you're wanting to balance some part of your life. Everyone is. So anything that's too much, you might start doing less of and incorporating something else into your life. Mercury enters your partnership sector on the 26th. Again, going to meet the South Node. There may be old conversations come up with a partner, about a partner, with a relationship in your life, bringing up something from the past and communicating about how to finish it or how to do it right this time around. The South Node can also be about collecting debt, what is owed to you as well. So there can be something coming up about that as well. Speaking of debt, Venus enters Scorpio on the 22nd, and this might be a really positive time to benefit financially from another person, especially if it is a business partner, but to benefit financially in terms of taxes, mortgages, other people's money, loans, grants, that type of thing. With Venus being in Scorpio, you could find that it's just easier to be given money or to be given grants or something like that. With Venus going through the 8th house, you're more magnetic to other people's resources. Other people want to give to you, Aries. So that is what I have for you in September. I hope you have a great month and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Taurus, welcome to September. So Taurus, there's quite a few things going on this month that I want to touch on. The first being that Uranus is going to go retrograde in your sign. So I want to say you're probably kind of comfortable to Uranus at this point, but then I'm not 100% sure if you're ever truly comfortable with Uranus being around. But it's quite a wiry, anxious energy at times, but it's very liberating, very freeing. And it can bring the type of changes that are sometimes unwelcome, but also sometimes entirely welcome and set you up for more freedom in your life, more innovation, to see things and experience things you didn't know were possible, Taurus. So with Uranus going retrograde, I think for a lot of you, you're going to be reflecting on the changes that you've made, the changes that have happened to you. I think you're also going to be inwardly challenging what has become normal for you, the way that you've always done things. You're more likely to surprise people because you're questioning what has always been within your life, the way that you style yourself, the way that you think about yourself, the way that you express yourself, the way that you live your life. It's all up in the air for you to change your mind, Taurus, and changing your mind is your prerogative. You get to sort of reflect on whatever changes you have made, but also what changes are possible, and sort of just contemplating how this is going to be, your time to break the rules and break free from the molds that either society creates for you, you create for yourself. And you might also have a bit of a wake-up call too on what it is that needs to change in your life, Taurus, what you need to do differently, how you express yourself, what it is that you are doing. Basically, it's very self-focused. Uranus does rule your 10th house of career, so maybe from a career perspective, you're also thinking what is going to suit you. Pluto has been there most of this year, but Pluto retrogrades into your 9th house on the 1st as well. And it's going to hover over that crisis degree in your 9th house until November. You might move, you might relocate, you might take a very soulful holiday or vacation or travel experience where you could really, I know this sounds very dramatic, you could really meet yourself there with Pluto. Pluto is very soulful. And if you're traveling, you might just find that you're closing chapters in your life, maybe what you learned from other people, what you experience with other people. You might have some quite karmic experiences on your travels or through relocation. Some of you might be moving abroad or moving home from being abroad, Taurus, but it feels like you're closing out an old chapter when it comes to travel. Maybe for some of you as well, it's actually manifesting quite literally as closing out an old chapter of a thesis or, your degree, your master's degree, your university degree, your doctorate, college, any of those things. You may be wrapping that up between now and November. It could be publishing something that you've been writing, something that you've been working on. And Pluto, again, is very soulful. It's where you put your heart and your soul into it. And you're very honest about what needs to change. So there's some sort of chapter closing in that area for you, Taurus. Now, there's a new moon in Virgo on the 2nd or 3rd, depending on where you are, but the effects of the new moon we feel the week before and the week after anyway. So this new moon is quite prominent in September for you, and this is happening in your 5th house. So for a lot of you, this could be new love. This could be a new love doesn't have to be romantic, but it could be something new that you fall in love with, whether that is something that you are doing for yourself, something you're creating, whether it's a pregnancy, whether it's giving birth, whether it is giving birth creatively, or again, whether it's a new love interest in your life or a new romantic chapter in your life. Maybe you're deciding, I need to manifest a more romantic lifestyle outside the confines of a relationship, just finding the beauty in a sunset and things like that, just more romantic for you, Taurus, especially if you're very creative. But this is a beautiful new moon to manifest love or to start something creative, start something that you want to see fruit from later, effectively. Obviously, it's in the sign of Virgo, and Virgo is a harvesting sign. So this is about making the most of what you already have. So if it is creative, it might be that you're incorporating something from, your past that you've not got to utilize as much to its full potential before. But the new moon is opposite Saturn. So if you're committing yourself to, with the new moon in the 5th house, having more fun, having more joy in your life, the opposition to Saturn sounds like a bit of a buzzkill. But Saturn being in the 11th house is that if you're starting something creative, your real friends, your very true friends will be there to help you do it. They might also be there to ground you if they think that you're going off track with something that you're doing. But it can be a time where maybe you're just social connections maybe don't feel as easy to come by. So you're thinking, well, I'm going to go to the party alone, or I'm going to go on this date even if my friends don't necessarily like this person. It's kind of figuring out your boundaries with other people, with friends in particular, groups of people, and what it is that makes your heart happy, and figuring out how to navigate that. There could be the best of intentions there, but you have to make that choice. Are you opening yourself up energetically too much to the opinions of other people on what makes you happy or who you love or something like that? Taurus, with Mars going through Cancer from the 4th. So Mars is in Cancer until November. And you may find that whatever is coming up until then repeats in the new year, from January to April specifically, because Mars will return to Cancer. So for you, Taurus, Cancer is your 3rd house of communication. You might find it easier to, have something quite sharp or direct come out of your mouth, even if you're not necessarily that way inclined. You could say something and it could sound angrier than you intended, more direct than you intended. You could hurt people's feelings with Mars being in your 3rd house, but it's more so a time, I think, where a lot of you are going to do what you say you will do. You will take action on the words that you promise. You're more likely to keep your promises. I think a lot of you could have quite angry thoughts with Mars going through the 3rd house. Be careful of driving at this time, especially because I'm thinking of the motion of a crab. If you're on a motorway or a freeway, of going sideways in cars. I don't mean that in a scary way, it's just that the crab goes sideways, and Mars in the 3rd can notoriously be associated with driving too fast or driving carelessly. So just be careful of that. You don't want to be doing that, because Mars being in Cancer can just for you be a bit of road rage or a bit of an angry thought here and there. But it can also be a great time for writing, especially if you're annoyed about something, writing it down, putting your action and energy towards creative writing, journaling, blogging, social media. You're more likely to get into a social media argument with Mars going through the 3rd house, but it can be great as well for, being more direct in your communication and standing up for yourself when you need to, Taurus. We also have Mercury entering your 5th house from the 9th to the 26th. Mercury loves being in Virgo, so this is really good for you when it comes to romantic communication, talking about your needs with someone romantically, talking about the details, making plans with someone romantically, dating. Also great for creative writing. It's actually a really beautiful month for any Taurians that are writers. It can be a really good one to communicate with your children as well, if you have children and there's maybe been some issues with communication. It's a lot easier this month with Mercury being in Virgo. There's a full moon lunar eclipse happening in your friendship sector on the 17th. This is going to be pretty significant for everybody because it is the first in a series of 7 eclipses right up until 2027. So, the Pisces area of your chart, it already has Saturn, it already has Neptune. From January, the North Node is going to be there, and we're going to have eclipses from this month. So for a lot of you Taurus, your friendship sector is likely to change. Eclipses in the 11th house tend to bring in fated changes when it comes to friendships and social relationships. So this can mean that you say goodbye to a friend, and if a friend is eclipsed out of your life, it doesn't have to be because anyone fell out. It can be because they're moving. It can be that you're maybe letting go of a friendship because they are relocating, or you're just not going to see them as much because they're getting married or something like that and living abroad. Or it can just be that you're maybe ready to let go of a friendship where you feel it has had its time and it is no longer supporting you, Taurus, because we do have a sextile to Uranus in your first house. So if the friendship is not supportive to you and your well-being, you may decide to lovingly let it go because it's a sextile. It might also be a case that for a lot of you, you encounter people who are going to be very significant friends on your journey, very significant friends. Whether they're a friend for life, I don't know, but it can be that people just fall into your life with eclipses happening in the 11th house. You can find your soul tribe at this time as well. An emphasis on soul tribe because there's a conjunction to Neptune and a sextile to Pluto. So a lot of you might find yourself occupying new spaces and new groups and new communities going forward, Taurus. Eclipses in the 11th can also be a time where you change your vision for the future. Maybe you thought you wanted one lifestyle and now you feel like you want something different. Maybe you were always a city slicker and now you're thinking you want to live in the country and run a farm. Whatever the case may be, your vision of the future can be changing in September, Taurus. The sun moves from your 5th house on the 22nd into your 6th house. So we're going from a time of fun and creative expression and the arts and maybe going to the theatre, going to a museum, all those different things, moving towards your health and your wellness. And we're going to have eclipses in this sector in October. So for a lot of you, it's good to focus on your health and your well-being, particularly with Libra energy, finding balance when it comes to your health and your well-being, Taurus. Venus enters your 7th house of relationships from the 22nd. And this is really positive for you to have your ruler in the 7th. Obviously, Venus doesn't love being in Scorpio, but for you, this can bring about new romance, a romantic relationship, better times with a romantic significant other, with it being Venus, connecting better in your relationships in general, a really positive time for relationships with you, Taurus. Mercury enters your 6th house on the 26th. There's a connection to South Node, so you might hear from old co-workers around this time, or old personal trainers, dietitians, doctors, gyms, with the South Node and Mercury connecting, and the Sun and Mercury connecting, and Venus and Mercury connecting in your 6th house. You might pick up old health habits, things that you used to do to stay well, things that you used to do to stay fit. You might hear back about a medical appointment or a medical procedure, Taurus, or you may connect with people that you used to work with. So that is what I have for you, Taurus. I hope you have a beautiful month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Gemini, welcome to September. This is the horoscope for your sign. So Gemini, Uranus retrograde in your 12th house this month. This is going to be a time to reflect and readdress what's been going on for you in terms of your work behind the scenes. So that could be a project that you're working on behind the scenes. It could be the inner work that you're doing, the spiritual work that you're doing. It could be the rest that you're taking or the healing that you're doing. You might notice at the beginning of September, you're maybe rethinking what would be the norm for you in those areas. So, maybe some of you are having spiritual awakenings and you're incorporating things into your routines that you didn't see yourself doing a few years ago. Or maybe for some of you, you're rethinking what you need to do for your mental health, or how you've been looking at things, Gemini, because Uranus rules your 9th house in modern astrology. So a lot of the inner work and healing that you could be doing could be because of your change in spiritual perspectives or even religious perspectives. You could be letting some of them go and perhaps taking on new and rather different ways of looking at the world. You could have a wake-up call when it comes to maybe something in your life that is a bit of a hidden enemy. Obviously, hidden enemies can be people too, so you might have a bit of a realization, maybe revealed to you through a dream or something like that, of who is not really for you in your life. But it can also be a what. You could dream about perhaps, say you smoke a lot, your lungs. You could dream about that and think, well, actually, do you know what? I want to let go of this particular habit or behavior for my own health. It can sometimes bring wake-up calls there as well, just readjusting and looking at things a little bit differently. And the theme of transformation kind of continues for you with Pluto re-entering Capricorn, your 8th house, at the crisis degree. This is about, it doesn't have to be a crisis necessarily. It's more of a global crisis, I guess. But for you, this is more to do with closing out old chapters. For some of you, that could be old chapters of grief, or it could actually be ending a crisis in your life. If something has been persistent and a persistent struggle, it can be the end of that. It can be the letting go and finally feeling like you're moving on. It can also be, Gemini, that perhaps you're very honest with yourself about what changes you need to make. And I think for some of you, this could actually be where you're seeking some kind of help, or some sort of counseling or therapy or anything to really work through any persistent issues that you've been dealing with, where you've had to let go, where you've had to grieve, where you've had to lose in some areas of life. This could be a change in the way that you look at it and the way that you address your healing and your feeling, not to be so poetic, Gemini. So yeah, that sounds kind of heavy, but this can be very healing for you, and it's more to do with the way that you look at it internally. As it's a retrograde period, it's sort of just the reflection on the changes that have already happened in your life. The new moon in Virgo is going to be for you very family oriented or home oriented. There could be a new beginning for a family member. There could be a new beginning happening in your home, a new beginning with property with this new moon in Virgo. And this new moon is a new chapter that could have some sort of professional link or component to it. Say you're working from home, or you're going to be doing work on the home, or you're bringing work into the home, something that needs to be balanced. The details need to be ironed out. There's going to need to be a firm emphasis on how this looks in the future, having the details about the future set, that you've looked into what this actually means, Gemini, in terms of this new beginning, this new work project, this new home work-life balance that you're trying to seek, or perhaps the work that you're doing on the home. It can be a good time to set intentions of where you want to live, what you want your home to look like, who you want to live with, what property you want, or what property matter you want a reset in. It's a good time to look at that and be very detailed, be very honest, and be very committed to whatever it is that's coming up for you home-wise, Gemini. But it does look like for a lot of you, it could be a new beginning. It could be a move. For some of you, it could be a mortgage. It could be a financial contract surrounding the home. Or it can be perhaps that you have a new beginning with a family member by implementing stronger boundaries in the relationship. Mars enters your second house. It leaves your sign this month and enters your second house on the 4th. And Mars tends to bring a lot of action, a lot of energy, and a little bit of confrontation as well, or a little bit of frustration or aggression or some anger. So this is putting a lot of energy into your financial sector. And for you, because it's going to be an eclipse in this month, the moon, it's a lunar eclipse, the moon rules your financial sector. I think for a lot of you, you're probably focused on making some significant financial changes. Now, Mars isn't necessarily so happy in Cancer, but that's okay. It still means that you can have more drive, more energy when it comes to making money, or if you're in conflict with others, it may be about money, or it may be about values and confidence and really wanting to assert your values and stand up for yourself because of your because you're feeling confident, or because you're feeling like, hey, actually, no, I don't deserve this. It can be that kind of energy. It does bring a lot of friction, but it does also bring a lot of passion. So you're probably passionate about your values. You're probably passionate about something that matters a lot to you this month. But I do find with Mars going through the second, usually a person puts a lot of energy and effort into securing the bag, so to speak. Mars also will return to this sector in January 2025 until April. So it's part of the Mars in retrograde cycle. So just be mindful that if you're taking action financially, some of it may need to be reviewed later, and you might rethink some of the actions that you put into place. They're not necessarily going to be totally solid. You may have to go over whatever it is that you're doing financially at this time, Gemini, because, you may find a little bit of fluctuations with this being in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon, the tides, fluctuations in and out. So money might come in easy and then go easy. And then it's just this sort of fluctuating energy financially, or with the energy that you're taking towards money. You could find yourself a bit frustrated about money at times, or you could find yourself quite innovative, actually, with it being Mars when it comes to money. You have the drive and the energy to make it happen for yourself. Mercury enters your 4th house again on the 9th. Mercury already did a brief retrograde stint here in August. So if you've been reflecting on your home or your living situation, or there's been some back and forth communication about property matters or home, or miscommunication with family members and stuff, you might find this a bit of an easier time to go forward. You might have learned something from that. You might have learned a different way to communicate with family members or about property matters, and things might start to move forward from the 9th to the 26th. Especially with that new moon, there can be new beginnings when it comes to home, family, and property matters. Now, there's a full moon lunar eclipse happening in Pisces, your 10th house in Gemini. And this is interesting because with, this being the moon ruling the moon ruling your financial sector, Mars being in your financial sector, and this being a lunar eclipse, I feel like there's a really strong emphasis on your career. For a lot of you, this is letting go. So you might be deciding to retire, you might be deciding to leave a job, you might be leaving your workplace, leaving an industry, leaving a particular field because your soul no longer feels aligned with it. For others of you, this can actually be that your boss steps down, or someone prominent steps down in a position of authority in your workplace as well. There's a positive connection to Uranus, so I kind of get the impression with this full moon that perhaps there is going to be positive change coming in from behind the scenes, or things happening that you maybe didn't expect to be happening at this time, Gemini. I kind of get this sense that with this eclipse, everyone's going to be emotional about whatever's happening. But it is the first in a set of 7 eclipses, in a series of 7 eclipses in this set of signs. A mutable energy, you're very familiar with that being a mutable sign. So I think for a lot of you, this is going to be professional changes, opportunities to step into positions of power, to become self-employed, to leave one industry behind, begin a new industry or something like that. But it does look like it's going to motivate you financially, I feel, with this lunar eclipse. Or at least, motivate you because of what you stand for, the values that you have. And you might actually feel, if there's a position comes up that's a bit higher up than you're used to, you might actually feel pretty ambitious about this. You might actually feel quite confident in taking it, Gemini. It's one way that this can play out. The sun enters your 5th house at the equinox, and this is going to bring a lot of opportunity for love, dating, connection, whether you're taken or not. You might have more date nights with your partner. You might decide that you want to get out there if you're single. Some of you might decide that you want to work on something creatively. We are heading into eclipse season this month, and eclipses will happen in October in Libra. So you might find that there are fated events happening when it comes to love and romance as well, Gemini. That can be another thing that's happening for you. For some of you, this can be to do with pregnancy. To some of you, this can be about giving birth, having children, the concept of having children. It can be about your creative life if you're in a creative field or profession. It can be that perhaps you're just looking to have more fun in life, or looking to bring a little bit more fun and joy into your overall routine, Gemini. And as well as that, your ruler enters the sector on the 26th, adding emphasis to that. Now, some of you with all the South Node activity, because the South Node's in Libra, you might hear from somebody from the past that you used to date, or you might go over an old conversation pertaining to a child, or an old issue might come up with a child, and you might perhaps clear some fears or some baggage when it comes to your relationship with a child in your life, when it comes to an old partner, someone you used to date, or when it comes to love and romance in general, or even clearing out some karmic blocks when it comes to love, when it comes to creativity and such, Gemini. But yeah, one day that I want to mention as being very positive for you is the 15th, when Venus in your 5th house trines Jupiter in your 1st house. It's going to be really positive for love, romance, relationships, having fun with other people, going to social events, social activities. You might find that this is a particularly exciting, fun, or pleasurable day for you, Gemini. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Cancer, welcome to September 2024. So Cancer, one of the main themes of this month is that Mars is entering your sign on the 4th. So Mars is going to be in your sign for quite a while because it is going to retrograde back into your sign in January and be there until April of 2025. So Mars being in Cancer until November when it enters Leo is not your only Mars in Cancer cycle. So Mars will be in your first house early next year as well with the retrograde, which is going to be interesting for you because it's going to be a significant period of new beginnings in your life with where you're taking action and where you're putting your action for your personal goals and your personal agendas, or what it is that you want to achieve for yourself, your physical health and things like that as well. So with Mars being in your sign, it can often go two ways. It can bring you more energy to do more, to achieve more, to make more things happen for yourself, to push yourself a bit harder. And it can also exhaust you and burn you out because sometimes with Mars going through the first house, we feel we have this abundance of energy. We don't need to rest and we don't need to recuperate. And then boom, we feel kind of under the weather. So try to keep it in balance. Try to keep it in phases. You're ruled by the moon. So work on something quite hard for a couple of days and then take a day off to just relax and chill, or just make sure you're finding balance with whatever it is that you're doing energy wise, whether that's hitting the gym or working on a personal goal. A lot of you may be taking action on something health or fitness wise. So getting into shape, wanting to go to the gym 3 days a week, or, do a cycle, race or something, or do a marathon or something like that. With Mars in your first house, you might have a lot of energy, ambition and drive, but it can also sometimes make you more irritable, more moody in an angry or irritated fashion, Cancer, just so that you know that can be an issue at times with you being ruled by the moon. It can come in and out like the tides, but it just simply gives you a lot more energy and drive to do things for yourself, or more energy to make your own personal goals and wishes happen, Cancer. It can also make you feel more passionate about what it is that you care about. And as Mars rules your 10th house, this might be really pushing yourself and exerting yourself when it comes to career matters or a personal goal in general. But let's have a little look back to the start of the month. Uranus is going retrograde and will be in retrograde until early next year. So for the rest of the year, there's reflection on where you could change the rules a little bit, where you could shake up the rules or the status quo when it comes to friendships, when it comes to your social goals, when it comes to socializing. Internet activity might be a change here, so you might decide that you want to spend less time online, socializing with people online, and maybe you want to spend more time socializing with people in person. Or it can be that perhaps you're rethinking or reflecting the people that you hang out with, and if they're worth taking forward into the next chapter, because maybe you're looking to make some new friends, some friends who share your vision for the world or are part of a cause that you're connected to, or, there can be some shakeups and disruptions when it comes to friendships, teams, or groups of people, and you might be rethinking how you deal with this or how you deal with these people. You can want to change the rules socially a little bit, so maybe you're finding yourself kind of bothered by certain spaces that you occupy, and you're thinking, well, actually, I want to try something new and branch out. It's more reflective and internal, so you notice these changes and this disruption coming from inside. Maybe you're just feeling kind of tired of whatever team you're a part of and you want to try something new. Pluto re-enters your partnership sector this month as well, right off the bat in September. And this is about closing out old cycles, Cancer. So if you think it's a long cycle, Pluto being in Capricorn, this is the final hurrah. It's until November, but Pluto did enter Capricorn in 2008, and I can bet your relationships with other people have been through some power struggles, some significant changes, possibly betrayals with Pluto. Possibly there's been some trauma or some baggage come up in partnerships and relationships, or very significant changes. You could have started 2008 single, ended up married, and you could possibly have had relationships with prominent people, famous people, powerful people. Or you've had power struggles or controlling relationships, or dealt with your own issues in relationships, codependency perhaps, or something like that. But Pluto going over this degree, especially for the next couple of months, is really going to focus on closing out an old chapter when it comes to relationships. What needs to change in order for you to be more honest and authentic with yourself and what you need and want from partnerships in particular. romantic, business, best friend, someone very close to you in your life. Cancer, there can be very significant changes here. Some of you might be going through divorce, separations, breakups, and some of you may also find yourself meeting someone that changes your life completely. It can be the end of a very serious relationship in your life, or it could be closing out a significant pattern in your relationship life as well, Cancer. There's a new moon in Virgo coming up, and this new moon in Virgo on the 2nd or 3rd, depending on where you are, is going to be in your 3rd house of communication and short distance travel, short distance trips. Some of you might be deciding to take a trip, book a trip. It's going to be a new car that you're buying, a new vehicle, a new mode of transport, a new way of commuting or getting about. It can be a new it can be a relationship reset with a sibling, or it could perhaps be for some of you that you are going to start writing a book or starting a website or starting a social media business or something like that. And you could be doing this with a business partner or a partner who's abroad. For some of you, someone who lives in a different country, or maybe someone who's got a very significant degree or is very well educated in whatever it is that you're starting, if you're starting a project, Cancer. But this is a good time to set intentions when it comes to 3rd house matters, cars, journeys, trips, communication. Maybe you're wanting to learn or study something as well, Cancer. I do have a video up on this that's a bit more detailed. As I said, Mars enters your sign in the 4th, and this is going to be a longer term transit because of the retrograde. So you may find that you're really focusing on what you need to do for yourself, for your own energy levels, your body. These things may be of more interest to you. I could really see a lot of you hitting the gym or taking up a sport, with it being in the sign of Cancer, maybe something beside the beach or beside the water, maybe something as simple as walking by the water. One of the biggest things of this month is the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. For you, this is happening in your 9th house. There could be significant changes when it comes to travel, when it comes to long distance affairs, visas, passports, documentation, legal matters. Some of you could be closing out a chapter here. There could be something prominent occurring with those themes at this time. Maybe some of you are taking a destined trip. I notice that when the nodes are in the 3rd and the 9th house, as they will change for you in January, because this eclipse is happening while the nodes are still in Aries and Libra. But this eclipse is going to be the first in a series of 7 eclipses on that axis. You might find yourself more focused on traveling, taking trips. And I mean long distance traveling, getting on a plane, going to a different country that's a few hours away. For some of you, it could be to do with wrapping up a degree, a master's, a diploma. Something could be coming up surrounding your education under this lunar eclipse, Cancer. And I do feel with Uranus and positive aspect to this, the change can be quite positive or liberating or freeing. And there can be an element of the unexpected attached to this. Maybe you can unexpectedly meet new friends, new social groups. You can find yourself suddenly enthralled with a new group of people who live abroad, or you move to a different country and you suddenly met people you're more in alignment with, or maybe you meet new friends through your education or something like that. But eclipses tend to bring fated change, so there's usually something prominent occurring at the first eclipse. You sort of get an idea really of what's going to be happening for you in this cycle. This series of eclipses is going on up until 2027, so it's quite a long one. So the signs may, if they're not impacting your personal birth chart too directly, the signs can be kind of subtle at times. But I think for you, this is really going to be an emotional change. It's going to be emotional because it's Pisces, but it is going to give you a bit of a clue and some themes about what the storyline is. So do pay attention. It's happening on the 17th at 25 degrees of Pisces. The Sun enters Libra on the 22nd. Mercury enters there on the 26th. Venus is there until the 22nd. So there's a good bit of focus this month, Cancer, on your home and your family. So for some of you, it could be a case that you're really focused on the home, you're focused on the family. Some of you could be reconnecting with family that you haven't seen in a while, that you have lost touch with or just haven't seen for whatever reason. Reconnecting. Some of you could even find yourselves moving over the next month, maybe even looking into October, or considering moving homes, maybe moving back to somewhere you used to live, changing your area, changing your location, because we do have an eclipse in Libra in October too. So you'll be seeking more balance when it comes to home and family, more work, home life balance as the sun enters Libra. Seeking more balance in terms of the time you're spending at work or the time you're spending at home, and sort of trying to overcome anything that's become familiar and stale. You could really be rethinking that when it comes to home and family. Maybe you need to get out of the house more, take your family with you. Maybe there needs to be a bit of a refresh when it comes to your living situation or property matters, Cancer. That's what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Leo, welcome to September. I hope you're all doing really well. So Leo, right off the bat, Uranus retrograde in your 10th house. So this is a longer term chapter with Uranus. It has been a period of change, thinking outside the box, redefining the rules, changing the narrative, readdressing what's considered normal for you when it comes to career, when it comes to employment or self-employment, and really, wanting more freedom in those areas for you. And I think you're starting to reflect on those themes. So reflecting on what it is that needs to change career-wise, where something has become stale that was once considered normal, it doesn't seem like such a great idea anymore. Really reflecting on this. You might have some wake-up calls internally about your career situation, or if it's not career, it can be your personal goals, your goals that you want to achieve in this life, the big things on your bucket list. It can be really rethinking and reframing what's normal in that area, and that might mean that you have to make a sudden change at some point. But usually the retrograde period is where we reflect, we reconsider, and we readdress the rules when it comes to this sector. Pluto is going to re-enter Capricorn, leaving your 7th house of relationships temporarily before settling in for a good solid 20-year cycle. Pluto is going to be back in your 6th house from September to November. And this is the final chapter of that particular transit. And it's the crisis degree. So I think a lot of you are looking very deeply and very honestly about your health, what you need to change, what steps you need to take in order to live a healthier life or lifestyle. I do think a lot of you could have to let go of something particular or address some deep-rooted issues when it comes to health matters. I think some of you need to look really honestly at what's going on for you health-wise. And I think maybe for some of you, even work-wise, what you're doing on the day-to-day basis, what your routine is when it comes to the services that you provide, etc. I think with Uranus and Pluto making significant changes, Uranus going retrograde, Pluto going back into Capricorn, both in your work houses. I think a lot of you are really rethinking the way that you work, how you push yourself, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what it looks like. And you're really going to be in September willing to at least think about what needs to change in those particular areas. Leo. There's a new moon in Virgo, which is your 2nd house. It's happening on the 3rd of September, and this is going to be a time where you're perhaps beginning something new financially. Maybe you're setting some intentions financially, just manifesting. It could be that nothing outside of you is happening, but very internally you're reflecting and thinking about what you want your financial life to look like, what steps you could take, how organized you could get when it comes to your finances. Or for some of you, it could be a new way of making money. It could be something new financially. Some money could be coming to you, or a new opportunity could be coming to you that helps you make money and maybe helps you pay off some debt that maybe you owe to other people, whether that's the government or a partner or anybody else. With the opposition to Saturn, I think you're going to be very dedicated, very committed, and you're probably going to need to be very honest with that opposition to Saturn as well. Mars enters your 12th house, and this is really important for you, Leo, because Mars is not just going to exit your 12th house in November and go into your sign. It is going to retrograde back into your 12th house in January until April of 2024. And you might find that with this particular chapter, you're going through a period of letting go and starting, and then changing what you started, and then changing what you've let go. I think for a lot of you with Mars being here, it is that, Mars going through the 12th is notoriously quite low energy. It doesn't necessarily feel the busiest. It doesn't feel the most energetic. It doesn't feel the most driven. So go easy with yourself if you're feeling more tired, if you're feeling more run down. If you get a cold here and there, just go easy on yourself. You don't have to be all go all the time. You ever see lions lying in the sun, just enjoying lying in the sun and not having to do anything? They're not hunting all the time. Some of the time they're literally just lying there leisurely. Allow yourself to lie down and take a beat, Leo, if you're feeling tired. This can sometimes also bring some nightmares or dreams that are a bit tricky. Just wanted to warn you. And because there's a lunar eclipse this month, you might find that some of your dreams are a bit overwhelming at times, or you might need to really focus on getting a sleep schedule in place, really prioritizing getting good sleep for a lot of you. With Mars being in Cancer, playing ocean sounds or something like that, or doing a walk on the beach before bedtime might actually help you unwind and relax. But it can also just sort of bring a bit of a fight in you to combat some hidden enemies, whether that is that you need to give up smoking or drinking or something like that, or a self-sabotaging behavior. You might actually have the drive and the energy to address these things, Leo, which can be really positive for you. And then when Mars moves into your sign in November, you might think, okay, I have the energy, I have the drive to make this happen, bring in these changes. You just might find in this cycle in general that there are some oppositions coming towards you from other people, and you will be challenged to assert your boundaries. But I'll talk more about that when Mars goes into your sign. Just know for now that you might be getting a good bit of rest to stand up for yourself, to be in a better position to fight for yourself and advocate yourself later. So take the rest when you can, Leo. Mercury is in your sign until the 9th, where you're feeling quite communicative. You might have had some, mercurial errors with communication, whether that is someone misinterpreted what you said, you misinterpreted what someone else said, you had to have some back and forth conversations with another person about a misunderstanding. You'll find it more easy to speak for yourself, to talk for yourself, to advocate for yourself, Leo, with Mercury being in your sign. But when Mercury enters Virgo, where it's very happy on the 9th, you might find yourself having some really good ideas financially, or getting organized financially in a way that's going to benefit you financially. So whether that's going through your bank statement and cancelling some payments, subscriptions, or whatever, you might find that these changes help you financially. The more that you're thinking about money and the more that you're taking practical steps with money, it can benefit you in quite a significant way if you just pay attention to the details, Leo. The lunar eclipse happening on the 17th is in Pisces. For you, this is in the 8th house. So this eclipse is very significant. Eclipses tend to be significant, but when we have the first in a series, it gives us a preview of some very long-term themes. So these eclipses in Virgo and Pisces, this is the first one, and these are going to go on until 2027. So the Pisces and Virgo parts of your chart, they're going to change a lot, especially because Saturn is going to be in and out of your Pisces house as well, leading into next year. The nodes are going to shift in January. So there's going to be some very significant activity and change happening in these areas for you, Leo. And this one in particular can be to do with other people's money. I think a lot of you could be motivated to pay off a debt, clear a debt. Some of you could be very motivated to, if you're getting payments from the government or from someone else, to let them go. But it can also be because the North Node is going to go there in January, that you're really merging your finances with somebody else as well. I do think for a lot of you there could be positive change when it comes to career goals that perhaps help you pay something off, or maybe there's changes happening for you professionally that help you pay off a debt or cancel a debt. Or it can also be that you're letting go of some emotional baggage or addressing something that needs to be healed. There can be some very significant shadow work and purging with a lunar eclipse in the 8th house. And I think this is going to benefit you positively in the sense that maybe you're getting a better view of the future. If there's been an issue that you kind of have felt, you sensed it, with Neptune being in play here, you felt it, you sensed it, but you didn't know what it was, it may be revealed to you at the time of this lunar eclipse. And this might really help you in terms of processing something emotionally, Leo. This can be a really emotional time for you, so allow yourself to be supported. Uranus rules partnerships for you. There's a trine to Uranus. Allow yourself to be supported by other people, maybe people that you work with, if you're going through some emotional changes at the time of this eclipse. But it can absolutely bring about changes financially or to do with your emotional internal life, baggage, trauma, things you want to let go of or work on there, Leo. Some of you could also get more interested in the occult with this eclipse as well. Venus enters Scorpio for you on the 22nd, and this is going to bring more positive energy to your home and family sector. Venus obviously does not love being in Scorpio, but when Venus transits the 4th house, this can bring better times with family, with familial relationships, with getting nice bits and pieces for the home. I sometimes find with Leo risings, and it always surprises people, but because they have a Scorpio 4th house, sometimes the home and the decor can really be quite Scorpiophonic and doesn't look like it would belong to a Leo rising. Scorpio rules skulls. We associate skulls with death. In astrology, Scorpio is the sign associated with death. So sometimes I've seen Leo risings, and this is off the point of September, but it might be something you notice. You might find some really good Halloween decorations, for example, for your home. But I know a Leo rising who has a collection of crystal skulls in her home. And she only wears bright colours. She only wears fun prints, blonde hair, never wears black. But in her home, which is a Scorpio 4th house, she has skulls. And I find it really funny. So you might find some nice bits and pieces for the home, and they can be Scorpiophonic is what I'm trying to say. So it's a good time to shop for Halloween decorations, Leo. The Sun enters your 3rd house on the 22nd. Venus is there until the 22nd, and Mercury enters there on the 26th. The South Node is here. You might have to go over some old conversations. You might discuss things from the past. There can be some karma comes up with siblings. There can be some karma comes up in your siblings' life, maybe because of their relationships. It can also be that you're looking for more balance when it comes to your relationship to siblings, when it comes to neighbor relationships, when it comes to how you communicate with other people. There needs to be more balance here for a lot of you Leos, because it's a Libra 3rd house. Your communication has to be balanced. The relationships with your siblings is where you're seeking balance and perhaps some boundaries, and something may need to change. You might need to let go of something or bring up a conversation from the past, Leo. But that is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Virgo, welcome to September, and a very happy birthday to all the Virgos who are celebrating their birthday in September. I hope you have a wonderful year ahead. So Virgo, the start of the month we have some significant changes happening. Uranus is going retrograde, and Uranus will be retrograde until early 2025, so this is a long cycle, but retrogrades typically bring the energy inward, so we're more reflective. The things that you may be more reflective about: philosophy, religion, spirituality, the world. What does it all mean? For a lot of you, you could be studying more, wanting to study a particular topic. Some of you maybe are going back to university or back to college, or some of you are just reflecting and rethinking your worldview and your perspectives, and maybe having some shifts. You know, Uranus tends to question the norm and the status quo. So say you've had a particular belief all your life, Uranus going through the 9th can be a time to change it. And the retrograde period is where we reconsider our beliefs and rethink what questions we're asking, rethink our perspectives, rethink what we're learning, or what we've given up learning. We might pick up some books again that change our perspective ever more. For some of you, you might also be rethinking your travel plans or your university or your college. All those different things might be up for review, reflection, and maybe redoing in some cases, or revisiting as well. So you might pick up that old philosophy textbook and maybe see things a little bit differently. It's actually kind of interesting how when you read a book, or even when you watch a TV show or you watch a play, something that you do for the second time, you kind of get something from it you didn't see before. And that's what Uranus retrograde can do. And it can really shake up what you've considered to be normal. Pluto re-enters Capricorn, your 5th house, on the 1st as well. This is only going to last 2 months. It's the final chapter of the Pluto in Capricorn story, which has gone on since 2008. And if you thought that was a long time, just wait to see how long Pluto is in Aquarius. But this is the final chapter. This is the final closing of your Capricorn chapter. So maybe you're closing up some sort of karmic storyline, difficulty, or crisis that you've experienced when it comes to your love life, your romantic relationships, when it comes to pregnancy, when it comes to birth, when it comes to your children, or when it comes to your creativity. These themes are something that you're going to be seeking absolute authenticity in, like you wouldn't believe. So this can be, Virgo, that maybe when it comes to, your relationship to a child, you're having to be very honest with them about something. Or maybe in your dating life, if you've had a series of karmic relationships, you're really looking inward and thinking, okay, well, what needs to change here? What am I doing? What are my patterns? Because Pluto is very psychological, or it can be, you're maybe noticing something come out in your kids that you've dealt with, and you're thinking, okay, well, what is this? Because I didn't address this with me, and now I'm going to look at it for them, for example. Or it can be that maybe creatively you're just wanting to do something more authentic for you and that you feel is in alignment with your soul. A good example of this, I won't name a person, but with Uranus retrograde in the ninth, it can also be that you're reflecting on legal matters and legal collaborations or documents, and Pluto in the fifth is about creative authenticity. There could be some legal back and forth if you're an artist, if you're in the movies, if you're, a director, or if you're a singer-songwriter. It can be that perhaps the contract that you have with an agency or a company is maybe taking you in a direction that you don't want to be in, and you're thinking, well, this isn't very authentic to me. I need to rethink this, or I need to be honest about what I want to change here. That can be something that comes up as an example, just to show you how it plays out with these two outer planets making significant shifts early September. Now, the new moon in your sign is happening on the 2nd or the 3rd, but basically it means that this is a big shift for you in terms of yourself. It's a new beginning. It is a chance to set some new intentions, to set some new goals. Don't be afraid to be picky. I know I shouldn't need to say that to you. Don't be afraid to get into the detail of what it is that you want to begin. But it's a personal new chapter for you, Virgo, where I think you may be thinking about your personal goals, your personal wants, and your personal wishes. And this may be in relation to commitments with a particular relationship, whether that be business, professional, romantic, marriage, Saturn in your 7th house opposite this new moon. You're kind of thinking about, okay, well, what do I need? What do I need to feel respected, and what do I need to feel healthy in a relationship? Especially if you're already in a committed relationship, or where do you need to ask somebody for help? Maybe you need some commitment from somebody else on something that you're working on personally. You need a collaborator. You need an investor or something like that, Virgo. You need someone who's going to help you out. But I think for a lot of you, this is really addressing the balance between your relationship and your relationship with someone else. Speaking of relationships, there is a lunar eclipse in your 7th house this month. Now, in terms of transits, you already have Saturn in your 7th house, you already have Neptune in your 7th house. There's a big focus in relationships. For some of you with Saturn, you could be making significant commitments to a partnership of some kind, whether that be romantic or business, as I say, but it usually indicates one significant relationship at least, where you're making a substantial commitment, or you're meeting someone you could make a substantial commitment to. If you're single, this lunar eclipse can absolutely coincide with the meeting of a fated relationship or the development of a relationship. If you're in a relationship, it can bring about change in the relationship, a significant shift. I think for a lot of you, this could be, maybe with the conjunction to Neptune and Neptune ruling your relationships, a lot of you could be taking your relationship to the next level. It could be a very romantic time, a very idealistic time. If it's totally realistic, I'm not so sure. But with Saturn there's a bit more hope of it being realistic, Virgo. I do think for a lot of you, this can bring about substantial change that you may feel quite emotional about when it comes to your partnership or relationship or the development of one. Again, this can be business relationships. With the positive energy with Uranus, I do feel like it can maybe change your outlook on life, or it could be with someone who is either very educated or someone who perhaps comes from a different background, belief system, or even a different country to you, Virgo. So fated changes coming up in your relationships for sure this month. Another thing that's happening for you with Mars entering Cancer is that you're going to be more focused on socializing. You're going to be more focused on getting out there. You're going to be more focused on connecting with groups and people. I think a lot of you are going to be quite, if you're not ordinarily, even quite socially active, quite focused on maybe a cause or some sort of you know, you might have a cause very dear to your heart that you want to put energy and action into, because Mars can be quite, well, it's very action oriented. It can be a little bit combative, and that's sort of the energy that you see when people protest or they stand up for something or they have a cause. There's usually a little bit of Mars energy behind it. So some of you may have a cause, but you might just have more opportunities to socialize, to connect with groups of people. You might be putting more energy into your friendships. It can also bring a bit of discord and combativeness when it comes to friendships. You might be more irritated with your friends. You might be more irritated socially. You might get more irritated with people on social media. Mars in Cancer is notoriously not very direct. This can be sort of passive aggressive at times, so do watch for that in groups of people. There can be real passive aggressive fights or conflict. But I will also say, with Mars being in the 11th house, Mars is going to go into your 12th house in November, and it's actually going to retrograde back into your 11th house in January, and it'll be there until April 2025. So this transit is not finished just yet, or it's actually going to be a bit longer than you think it is. So do pay attention to September of the action or the arguments or the energy that you have in your 11th house, because it may repeat and there might be some of it comes back to you a little bit later. So put out, you know, good positive intentions, because if there's a conflict, it might get dredged up again later. This might be a time when you're more focused on a cause, and then you sort of rethink it, and then you think, well, actually, I don't know. Or, you know, it's something that you're very passionate about, and then you're reflecting how you're going about it. That can be another thing that comes up, Virgo, with Mars being in Cancer, but it certainly gives you a lot more of a social energy, I think, to connect with different groups of people. Mercury enters your sign on the 9th and will be there until the 26th. This is really positive for you. Mercury is your ruler. To have it in your sign is really positive. You'll have the right words. You'll know what to say. You've been reflecting on the changes that you want to make personally. You're going to be finding it a lot easier to say what you mean and it to come out well and for it to be well received. So if you have to give a speech or you have to, you know, have a tough conversation, you're going to come across well at this time period, Virgo. The Sun enters your 2nd house on the 22nd, and you're looking for more balance financially. Mercury enters the sector on the 26th as well. And you're looking for more, you know, you may be thinking a lot more about your money, what you're spending money on. The South Node is here, so you may be noticing where your habits aren't so good with money, where you're letting go of money too much, like sort of slipping through your fingers, what needs to change, what you need to let go of, what you need to let go of, or where there's maybe some patterns with money and spending, especially when it comes to achieving balance financially. So it's a good time to balance your checkbook. Venus enters your 3rd house in the 22nd as well, and this is really good for your relationship to siblings. It can also be quite social too, having opportunities to attend events locally. Some of you might be investing in a new car. That could be where you're spending your money, or spending your money on your car, with Venus going through your 2nd house, 3rd house, Virgo. So that is what I have for you. I hope you have a great month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Libra, welcome to September, and a very happy birthday to all the Libras that are celebrating their birthday in September. I hope you have a wonderful year ahead. So Libra, your ruling planet, Venus, is very happy in your sign until the 22nd of the month, meaning that you're looking great, hopefully feeling great, and this may be a better time for a makeover, for positive developments when it comes to your aesthetics, so getting a good haircut, getting some good new beauty products, clothes, that type of thing. You can be more attractive to gifts, opportunities, and romantic admiration, or just admiration in general. You might be more of a magnet to compliments, Libra, with Venus being there. But you may also find that perhaps you're actually going back to some sort of style or something that you used to do. So maybe you used to use a certain product, or you used to use or wear your hair a certain way, or wanting to go back to your natural hair color or something like that. With the South Node going through this particular sector as well, and Venus meeting the South Node around the time of the Virgo new moon, you might actually just be finding that you're wanting to go back to something familiar, style-wise, beauty-wise, that really worked for you before. And you might think, well, actually, I don't know why I ever gave this up. But it can be reconnecting to also things that you love to do, or the way that you love to do things, Libra. Uranus is going to be going retrograde in your 8th house from the beginning of September, and it's going to be retrograde there until 2025. So early 2025 is when Uranus will go direct. Until then, I think a lot of you are really reflecting on where you could sort of question the status quo or make some changes or bend the rules or break the rules when it comes to your financial relationships with other people. So maybe you're thinking, okay, I've been in this mortgage for a very long time. I'm not happy here. Maybe it's time to sell. You could be rethinking that. Maybe you're thinking, well, I thought I was going to have this home for 20 years and now it's looking like, well, actually, why? Why do I have to? Or maybe it was that you had some debt that you wanted to pay off. You could be liberated for it. Maybe you have an idea that helps you liberate yourself from some debt, or maybe you were just thinking of doing things a particular way financially that just doesn't seem to make sense for you anymore. It can also be where you're recognizing where you've some emotional baggage or emotional trauma and you're looking at an alternative way of dealing with it. But basically it's coming out of the idea of normal, Libra, in these areas, maybe shaking it up. Some of you could, liberate yourself from a financial relationship at this time, and maybe you're reflecting on that and how that's going to change your life or how that's going to make you feel more free or more liberated, best case scenario. But these things can be, Uranus in one of the financial houses can be sometimes quite unsettling, quite unstable at times, but it can also be, quite liberating and quite freeing as well. It tends to bring innovation and thinking outside the box and opportunities to think outside the box that can actually work out really well. So you may have alternative methods of approaching these topics, Libra, but they can work out in the long run. Retrograde energy is more so reflective. So this is where you're rethinking and reconsidering the rules and what needs to change. And speaking of change, there's some other stuff going on too. Pluto retrograde enters Capricorn again from September 1st right up until November. I can't quite remember the exact date in November, but it's mid-November. Pluto is going to be in Capricorn and this is going to be in your 4th house. So there could be some sort of, with Pluto being at 29 degrees, some sort of crisis. You might feel this strong sense of needing to change. I do think for a lot of you, you might be rethinking where you're living or a home or property situation. Again, especially if you have a mortgage, because the Uranus retrograde in the 8th house can be reflecting on that relationship or that agreement. But it can also be that perhaps, you're wanting to change something when it comes to your lineage. So whether that's breaking a pattern or getting to the root of some family trauma, inherited trauma, baggage, you could be working through some pretty heavy stuff and really wrapping up a karmic cycle that's been quite challenging. It can also be that if there have been any crisis or challenges with a family member or within the home, this could be you perhaps getting to the root of it. The point of a Pluto retrograde is being really, really honest with yourself about what needs to change in order for you to feel in alignment with your soul. So if something just really doesn't feel right with your living situation, your home situation, your family situation, this may be a time where you're letting go of a particular way of making these changes, or letting go of a grudge, or letting go of a way of handling things, letting go of a pattern, breaking a pattern, ending a karmic connection of some kind when it comes to home matters, family connections. So leaving a home that you've always been in, for example, can be a change here. There can be some significant changes happening within the home or the family, Libra, as well. For some of you, this can be that, if you've lived in a home your whole life, you're thinking, well, actually, it's time to go. It seems very connected to property for you, Libra. This Pluto Capricorn transit is going to be happening until November. So just pay attention to where you notice your soul longing for change, or longing to let go, or longing to wrap up a particular chapter. It can bring a bit of crisis energy here and there because something needs to change. But this is likely something that's been happening for a while, or something that you're aware of. If it does, for most of you, because Pluto's in retrograde, it's internally wrapping up this chapter, to be honest. But the inner work and the inner healing continues because it is Virgo season, Libra. It's very behind the scenes for you. It's quite secluded. It's quite introverted. There's a new moon there opposite Saturn. So I think for a lot of you this month, there's a new chapter when it comes to your healing, when it comes to your mental health, when it comes to time spent alone. The ruler of it, Mercury, is in your 11th house. So you might be finding, that you're wanting to let go of a group or a friend, or perhaps you're wanting a reset when it comes to your group or a friendship in your life, or a team of people or something like that. You're wanting to have some sort of new beginning, but it requires you to let go as well, with the new moon being in the 12th. So you may be simultaneously letting go of something to pick up something else, or you might be finding that you're wanting to begin something behind the scenes, possibly something that you're wanting to work on a health-wise, whether that is mental health or health physically, but I think you're balancing the two, to be honest, Libra. This can definitely be something that you're very committed to, but people don't necessarily know that with the opposition to Saturn. And I think with the 12th house activity and the South Node being in your sign, I do think you're kind of letting go of certain, beliefs, and especially limiting beliefs or limiting behaviors or self-sabotaging behaviors personally. I think for a lot of you, you're going through quite immense inner transformation with these particular transits and really wanting to embrace a new beginning for yourself, especially because we're leading into October and there's going to be a solar eclipse in your sign. And speaking of the eclipses, there's a lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 17th. And for you, this is happening in your work sector. This is happening when it comes to the job that you do. This is also the sector of health. Do pay attention to the changes in those areas this month, because this is going to be the first eclipse in a series of 7 up until 2027. And this eclipse is the first in that batch. So you may notice that the themes that are coming up are quite significant for the long-term transits, with those eclipses lasting until 2027. The nodes shift in January, and I think for a lot of you, you might be letting go of a job, you might be letting go of a role in order to find something new, Libra. A lot of you might be going towards a new job in 2025, so some of you might be wrapping up a chapter in a particular job, in a particular role. There could be an ending there. It can also be that perhaps people you work with are leaving or changing, and it can also be that for some of you, you're letting go of something when it comes to your health and your wellness. You're maybe realizing, okay, I need to get healthy. I need to look after my health. I need to focus on my well-being. Or maybe for some of you, this is, taking a more spiritual approach, because it's Pisces and Neptune, taking a more spiritual approach to your daily routine. Some of you might decide you want to start meditating, or you want to start yoga, or there's some sort of spiritual practice that you may incorporate into your routine going forward, Libra, in order to feel better. I do think there's a very strong psychological, emotional component. It's in Pisces, it's in a sextile to Uranus in the 8th house, which is you reflecting on the changes you need to make, maybe psychologically or in terms of baggage. And you're probably changing your routine. You may notice some changes in your routine. This can also bring about significant changes in your health. So I think, Libra, with the South Node being there in your sign, I think you're really realizing what you need to let go of in order to be more healthy, in order to be your best self. What needs to change, what you need to let go of and release in order to be better, I suppose. And whatever better means to you. Now, the sun enters your sign on the 22nd. It's your season. It's where you are in the spotlight. As I mentioned, we have a solar eclipse in your sign next month. You're really shifting your focus onto you, your own personal needs, personal wants, and personal goals. Mercury enters your sign on the 26th. Better time for communication. There may be some stuff coming up for you personally, your relationship to yourself, where you're maybe reconnecting with a natural talent of yours, something kind of familiar, something you used to love to do, something that makes you you, and you're getting to put it maybe a bit in the spotlight again. So perhaps you're a wonderful seamstress, but you don't use that skill anymore. You're maybe getting a shot at showing people, maybe making something for a fashion show or something. I'm just giving a random example. It doesn't have to be that, but an old skill, an old hobby, an old talent of yours, a natural talent of yours that you may actually get to put in the spotlight this time around. Venus enters your second house on the 22nd, bringing some focus on your finances. It's usually pretty good for finances, can show financial improvements. Venus is not necessarily happy in Scorpio, but when it goes through the second house, it can be a time when you naturally attract more money, more resources, as it's a sign of Scorpio, from other people. Mars enters your 10th house on the 4th, and Mars will be there until November, but will go retrograde in December, and then retrograde back into Cancer in January until April. So this is a longer stint. This is a longer storyline than it may appear at first. Mars being in your 10th house, it can give you a lot of action and a lot of drive and a lot of energy when it comes to career, when it comes to goals, when it comes to making things happen. It can also be the source of conflict in your life. So there may be some conflict with a boss. There may be some conflict with someone in a position of authority, people you work with. Because it's in the sign of Cancer, it can be nippy. So there can be a bit of nippy energy in the workplace. It can bring about some conflicts that come up work-wise, so do watch for that because they may come up again at a later point. This can be tricky with authority figures in general, so even if it's not at work, it can just be you challenging someone in a position of authority and it kind of backfiring on you with this particular transit. But as I say, it can also be that you have more action in you more energy for your career, more energy for your goals, more energy to make things happen, more passion as well and drive for your career and your goals, Libra. So that can be really exciting. But obviously, as I say, Mars, very energetic, gives you drive, but it also can bring conflict as well. So it usually, wherever Mars goes is where we experience some sort of conflict or some sort of heightened activity and energy. There. So be careful not to burn out by working too much, but also be careful of conflict and friction in the workplace as well. So that is what I have for you, Libra. I hope you have a wonderful month and I'll talk to you soon. Hi, Scorpio. Welcome to September 2024. So Scorpio, I'm starting to lose my voice at this point, so if I sound a little bit like a frog, I apologize. But let's start with the very beginning of September. Uranus goes retrograde in your 7th house of relationships. Get comfy with this, or as comfy as you can be with Uranus, because Uranus is going to be retrograde in that sector until very early 2025. So you're going to be feeling this for the rest of the year. It's just simply a reflective time period where you start to reconsider and reevaluate what you consider normal when it comes to relationships. So whether you feel it makes sense for you at this point to do the traditional thing, whether you're changing what you want from relationships, what you think relationships should be, the types of relationships you should have, the types of people you should be with, or you might be kind of shaking up your relationship dynamic. You're rethinking these types of things basically from the context of relationships. So we're sort of readdressing maybe what you need to change because it doesn't suit you anymore. Maybe having a bit of a wake-up call on what it is that you want or need from relationships, because it just doesn't make sense for you anymore. Maybe it did once, but it we evolve, we change. Uranus going through the 7th house oftentimes coincides with people making sudden changes in their relationships or having sudden changes in relationships. But it can also be a time period you may notice since 2018 where you've changed your vision drastically on what you want from relationships or the kind of relationships you're having. So this is a reflective period to kind of catch up with yourself and rethink what you consider normal when it comes to relationships of all kinds, Scorpio. Just to note, this can feel a little bit unsettling at times as a fixed sign, but the more you allow yourself to make room to reconsider and rethink what you consider normal, the better you'll feel. Pluto re-enters your 3rd house, and Pluto is going to be at the 29th degree of Capricorn from September to November. In your 3rd house, for a lot of you, this can be, for one thing, this is about how you communicate. Pluto is your ruler, so how you communicate, what you say, what you think. And you might be sort of rethinking honestly with yourself what needs to change in order for you to feel more like you're communicating from the soul, what you say and what you don't say, changing how you communicate. There can be this really powerful energy of needing to speak your truth a lot, especially if you're not someone who's done that naturally. This can cause a bit of an uproar, especially in your relationships, I would say. But I think for a lot of you, you're letting go of old patterns when it comes to how you communicate. This can also be a time where it brings up old issues with siblings, changes with siblings. Your siblings' life could be changing dramatically. Some of you could have experienced great change, profound change with a sibling with this particular transit. And I think for a lot of you with the Pluto retrograde, it's very internal for you. Maybe you're getting to the root of some cycle, getting to the root of some pattern, and being very honest with yourself about what needs to change. And what needs to change may be the way that you think about it, Scorpio. We have a new moon in your 11th house of friendships and social connections. It's also the 7th house of the future, the 11th house of the future. So I would say for a lot of you, with Mercury having been retrograde for a brief stint in that sector in August, you may have reconnected with old friends. You might have had reunions with old friends, heard from old friends. I think for a lot of you, this is really a fresh start on what you want or the detail of what your social life could look like. Virgo is very detail oriented. So what plans you're thinking of making when it comes to your social life, the type of social activities, groups you want to be involved in. The opposition to Saturn can feel very serious. So you might be getting very serious about the groups, the causes, the teams, and your social life in general. You might be feeling pretty serious about this, and you might be setting some intentions of what you want from your social life at this time. Scorpio can also bring in a new friend. The new friend might be quite a bit older than you, or maybe a bit younger than you, but it can be a really solid friendship nevertheless. Mars enters your 9th house on the 4th. So Mars can bring energy, and it can bring passion, and it can bring drive. So a lot of you might be thinking, okay, I want to travel. I want to take a vacation. I want to travel the world. I want to go around the world in 80 days. I want to study for my university degree, but I want to do it in one night. You're kind of feeling this energy and this drive and this ambition to study something new or pursue something religiously, spiritually. You might be deciding that you want to travel, and you might have the energy for these things. Obviously with Mars, the energy can come in really quick. It can also burn out, so be mindful of that. Especially in Cancer, Mars is not necessarily so comfortable, and you can feel sometimes that you're tackling these things sideways. But Mars can also bring conflict and irritation. So you can be arguing with people over foreign affairs. You can be arguing with people at university, having debates. You can get in trouble with the law. You can fight with a police officer. You can fight with people who don't share the same beliefs as you. You can have some very spirited debates, maybe very spirited debates with family members because it's Cancer, about political affairs or something like that. So just be mindful of that. I want to mention that this Mars and Cancer cycle will be part of the retrograde cycle. Mars will re-enter Cancer in January and will be there until April of 2025. So the first quarter of 2025 will have Mars here as well. So pay attention to the themes that come up, because you may notice that these themes will come up later. You might have to review them, rethink them, or go over them again for whatever reason. So be careful of any conflict you engage in. It might go on longer than you think. But also be mindful that if you're planning to travel, you might look at this again or rethink this again, or have to go back for whatever reason. If you go somewhere under this transit, you might have to go back, or you might be back and forth in a legal issue or back and forth with a document as well, with it being in the 9th house. Mercury enters your 11th house on the 9th and will be there until the 26th. This is really positive because Mercury loves being in Virgo. In the 11th house, it can be really social. You can have a lot of events to attend. You can have a lot of communication with friends, a lot of active social activity, a lot of online communication, and it can just be a fun time socially in general, Scorpio. Especially with the Sun in your 11th house until the 22nd, accept the social invitations, go to the thing. I know that Saturn is in your 5th opposite your Virgo transits, and that can sometimes be a bit of a killjoy. It can sometimes feel a little bit like a party pooper, Saturn in the 5th. It can make you feel like, I don't want to go to the party, I don't want to go to the event. But you can miss out. And sometimes when the Sun's going through your 11th house, you get your energy back from socializing, believe it or not. Even if you're an introvert, you can find that you get your energy from other people at this time. There's a lunar eclipse in your 5th house on the 17th. So this is the first in a series of eclipses here until 2027. And this is the first in the series. It's pretty important. So for a lot of you, this is happening in the 5th house. This is to do with creativity. It's to do with creation. For a lot of you, this can be a pregnancy. This can be a birth, because the 5th house is associated with conception and children. This can be a birth, a pregnancy in your life. For some of you, it can be romance coming in out of nowhere. It can be romances blooming. You can be letting go of romance as well at this time if it doesn't suit you, if you don't feel like if it's in alignment with your highest good. It can be significant fated changes with your children, regardless of what age they are. It can also be opportunities for more parties, more fun. And it can also be something creative. You could be wrapping up a creative project. If you think back to March 2024, the new moon in Pisces, what was beginning at that time, what was happening at that time. It might give you some sort of clue or indication as to what could be wrapping up at this one. But this is going to bring up the themes of the next couple of years. It's in a really harmonious aspect to Uranus in your 7th house. So this can be really beautiful for your relationships or potential relationships as well, Scorpio. But this is bringing in some positive change and some development with whatever seeds have been planted. Do pay attention to the signs that come up at this time. I kind of feel like for a lot of you, this might just be about changing what makes you happy, or having realizations about what makes you happy, or letting go of something that doesn't make you happy in order to make room for what does as well. The sun enters your 12th house on the 22nd, but Venus enters your 1st house at this time as well. So while you might actually be feeling a little bit more introverted, a little bit more reclusive, a little bit more like you want to hide at home sometimes or work from home more, because the sun rules your 10th, you might also find at the same time you're a magnet to social invitations, to opportunities, to gifts, to romantic glances, to people checking you out, to people wanting to be with you. So just be mindful of that. It's usually a time when you're shining, Scorpio, when Venus goes through your sign. And Mercury enters your social sector on the 26th. You're on your social... Oh. You would think, I can't even blame Mercury retrograde. I know it's in shadow, but I can't blame that. Although this might be why. Mercury enters your 12th house, Scorpio, on the 26th. So you might just not be feeling as chatty. You might not be finding it as easy to find the words. Your interests, your intellect may be coming from psychology, the unconscious mind. Your dreams might have a lot of messages in them as well. You might actually dream of people from the past or people who have passed over, Scorpio, and it might give you some sort of significant message, or they might give you some sort of significant message that could be coming up for you, Scorpio, with Mercury connecting with the South Node. You might dream of a memory, or some of you might actually, if you're working with a therapist or a counselor or something, or you're doing some shadow work, you might actually uncover a memory that you forgot about, and it might be something that helps you heal or let go. That is what I have for you, Scorpio. Hope you have a great month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi, Sagittarius. Welcome to September. So Sagittarius, Uranus is going retrograde in your 6th house and will be retrograde until early 2025. So you're rethinking what is considered normal when it comes to your routine. What has been the norm? Where could you maybe break the rules a little and maybe go against the grain, so to speak? So there can be significant changes and shifts in what you do on a day-to-day basis, what you're doing for work, what you're doing for your job, your role can be a little bit in flux. Whether that's through time off or whether that's through changing jobs or whatever the changes to your schedule are, Sagittarius, I think you're rethinking and reflecting on what you'd like your day-to-day to look like. And maybe it doesn't match what you thought it should be or what you used to want, and that's okay. It's your prerogative to change your mind. When it comes to work, you might be finding you're changing jobs a lot, or perhaps you are changing up what your schedule looks like, maybe because you're working a job that has shifts, for example, or it can just be that you're rethinking what you want to do health-wise, how you want to focus on your health, what your health goals are with Uranus, and you're rethinking and reflecting on those. Pluto re-enters Capricorn early September and will be there until November for its final stay. And with Pluto being in your 2nd house, this can really change the way that you make money or a financial situation. I think for a lot of you, you're looking for greater authenticity with yourself when it comes to how you make money, what you make money doing, or your relationship to your finances, and where your finances are coming from, Sagittarius. So you might be finding that you're really thinking honestly about how you want to make money, or a pattern or a relationship with your financial situation. Can also be that it's nothing to do with money and it's everything to do with values. What matters to you most may be changing, and you may be getting very honest with yourself and saying, okay, I don't want to do this job anymore. It pays well, but I'm going to take the job I actually want to do that pays less, because I don't want to be controlled by money. I want to be in alignment with myself. That kind of thing can come up with this, Uranus retrograde, Pluto re-entering Capricorn. Maybe you're rethinking how you make money, the type of money that you make, because you're more focused on authenticity. And of course, money is important. It helps us to do the things we want to do. I'm just saying for you, you might be rethinking it. Of course, for some of you, it can be a job change that brings you more money. Whatever the case may be, Sagittarius, I think you're getting very honest about what needs to change financially, or what your values are, what matters most to you. There's a new moon in your 10th house this month, so there could absolutely be new career prospects on the horizon, a new job maybe, a new role, a new title, a new goal of yours that you're wanting to tackle. It is opposite Saturn, so I think you're very committed to this. I think for a lot of you, with Saturn being in the 4th house, maybe you are very focused on home, very focused on family. You know, maybe you're the breadwinner of the house, or maybe you're wanting to move. Some of you might be wanting to move homes or move home. I've seen Saturn in the 4th house sometimes, because I know you're a Sagittarius. Sagittarians love to travel a lot. Sometimes Saturn in the 4th can be returning home. Sometimes Saturn in the 4th can also be leaving the home and feeling kind of homesick. So maybe for some of you, you're taking a job, but it's going to take you overseas, or maybe it's going to coincide with a move, and you're feeling like it's a lot of change and a lot of commitment at once. But maybe some of you are getting news of a new job or a new career opportunity that may either help you with your commitments to your family, or you might have to balance with commitments to your family or commitments to home matters. Sagittarius. Mars enters Cancer on the 4th, and this is your 8th house. I just want to make one thing very clear about this particular transit. This is not going to be a short stint, because Mars will re-enter Cancer due to the retrograde in January until April. So Mars going through the 8th house. One thing I have to tell you right off the bat, and I know you guys are brave, so I think you can handle it, but Mars going through the 8th, you have to face your fears. Something, if it's a fear, if it's a phobia, something will come up that you have to face. And I think with the retrograde cycle, it's even more likely than usual, you'll have to face a fear of some kind. Sagittarius. So I don't know what that will be. It'll be different for all of you, but I think a lot of you are going to really address it, tackle it, and be brave in the face of whatever this fear or phobia is. And when I say fear or phobia, it can be something that to you is big that wouldn't be considered big to other people. So a fear of a particular insect, for example, you might have to address. So say you were moving to Australia and you were scared of spiders, you might have to face it. But it can also be that your energy is very heightened in your 8th house. So that can be really great for passionate relationships, intimate relationships. That can be that can be an area that gets a lot of activity. It can also be that perhaps you are, as Mars rules frustration and confrontation, there can be arguments in joint financial affairs or irritations when it comes to a tax situation or government money or the money that you're getting from other people. There can be some arguments about money, or there can be arguments about or frustrations with sources of income or money that is given to you, so your mortgage or something like that. There may be something comes up there that's frustrating for you, or it could just be a bit of anger at the tax man with Mars going through the 8th house. Communication takes a real improvement when it comes to career, Virgo, because Mercury enters your 10th house in the 9th. Mercury loves being in Virgo. So for a lot of you, communication is better with people in positions of authority. You can say what you need to say and be well received. It can also be that communication improves when it comes to career matters in general. You might find you get more activity there, more recognition there. It might be a place where you're finding you're really excelling. It's quite busy, but you're doing well. It's productive, and it feels like it's working career-wise. I do think for a lot of you, there could be new beginnings career-wise, or new goals put in place or set this month, Sagittarius. There's a lunar eclipse in your 4th house this month, and pay attention to this because it is the first in a series of 7 up until 2027. So there can be changes for you in terms of home, family situation, Sagittarius. You might be changing a living situation at this time. You could be moving, you could be relocating. There could be changes happening in your family. There could be changes happening in the home, property-wise, who you're living with. These changes can give you a clue as to wider patterns over the next few years, so do pay attention to it. But I think with this one, the positive energy with Uranus is making me think that these changes can be good for your routine. They can be good for your health. They can be good for your well-being. So maybe if you're moving somewhere with fresher air, or maybe if you're relocating somewhere that's easier for you to get a job or something like that. Or maybe you're relocating for work. But there can be a move indicated for a lot of Sagittarians, or significant family changes coming up at this time. You might be feeling quite emotional about this with it being in Pisces, but do pay attention to it. It's pretty significant. You do also find with this, because your ruler Jupiter is in the 7th house, I think for a lot of you, you could be moving for a partnership or moving for a relationship, Sagittarius. There's positive energy coming in from the Libra planets to Jupiter in your 7th house, which could be really positive for relationships, meeting other people, connecting with other people socially, Virgo. And with the Sun in your 10th house until the 22nd, you're going to be feeling very professional, very focused on work, but things get more social, progressively more social, with the Sun entering your 11th house on the 22nd. More social invitations, more opportunities to be with other people, that kind of thing. Venus does enter Scorpio on the 22nd as well, so you may notice that if you're dating someone or you're in a relationship, romantically speaking, you may want to be more private, more behind the scenes. You might also find yourself shying away a little bit from the odd social invitation because you just find it more appealing to be at home. And sometimes the Venus in 12th house transits can coincide with secret admirers as well, or soulmates. You can encounter people that feel like you've known them for a very long time. I also think with the connections between the Libra planets and the South Node, some of you Sagittarians may actually reconnect with old friends, hear from old friends, reconnect with people you used to socialize with, or have some really fun social reunions at this time. You're probably seeking a little bit more balance when it comes to your social life. So you may find that you're reconnecting with people that you used to be in a team with, a group with, or used to be friends with this month as well, Sagittarius. But that's what I have for you. I'll talk to you soon. Hi Capricorn, welcome to September. So Capricorn, the biggest thing for you this month by far is the fact that Pluto is re-entering your sign right off the bat, first day of the month, and this is going to be the final stint of Pluto in your sign until November. And Pluto is going to be the last degree of your sign until then in retrograde. And so this simply means, Capricorn, that you're wrapping up a very personal chapter in your life. Now, this can be that you're looking very deeply and honestly at what needs to change, or you're finding answers on what you need to change. This can be for a lot of you if there has been something health-wise that you have found it hard to get to the bottom of, or a personal issue you find it hard to get to the bottom of. This can be a time when you get it. You can feel this urgency to tackle it, and so you might put in more effort, more energy to get to the root of it, whether it's, a reoccurring problem health-wise, or whether it is a reoccurring problem in your life, a personal issue. I think a lot of you are being very honest and also just looking very deeply at it. So there can be profound personal change and personal growth depending on what you're willing to look at and what you're willing to let go of between now and November. But it really is closing out an old cycle for you. So this may feel quite potent, quite profound, but it can absolutely bring a lot of answers that you need, Capricorn. For some of you, it feels like you're making very personal changes at this time, or you might actually just find your life is changing quite substantially from what you thought it would be. And that can be positive too. This can be where you're letting go of fears that hold you back in order to embrace a new chapter, Capricorn. Just to give you the positive stint on it, because Pluto can be very heavy and Pluto can be very transformative, and sometimes that can seem scary. You have had Pluto there since 2008, so I have seen Capricorn risings transform very significantly, physically, personally, emotionally, spiritually, and very profoundly, to find who they truly are. And not everybody gets that cycle in life. Not everybody truly finds that, So well done for this particular transit. Well done indeed. So other things that are happening this month: Uranus retrograde in Taurus, your 5th house. This is really a time to reflect and rethink what you consider normal when it comes to your children. So maybe for some of you this coincides with your children going back to school and you're getting a bit more freedom. With this being September. Maybe for some of you, you're rethinking how you raise your children, or why you raise your children a certain way, or you're maybe rethinking what is considered normal or what you should do or need to do when it comes to how you raise your kids. Or for some of you, it's been surprise pregnancies and you're rethinking how those have changed your life. And really with Uranus retrogrades, we question the norm. We question what we think things should be. And the retrograde is the reflective part of this rather than making the changes. So just reflecting on what it is that you see yourself doing when it comes to raising your children or your relationships with your children. It can also be that some of you are reflecting on what needs to change or what you consider normal when it comes to your love life. So maybe some of you never dated a particular type of person, and now you're thinking, well, actually, why not? Yeah, it doesn't make sense on paper, but a really good mental connection with this person, a really good friendship with this person, so why not? This can definitely, with Uranus, be a friends to lovers pipeline, or it can be, rethinking what you consider normal in terms of the type of person you date. So maybe you've never dated someone from a different country. Maybe you've never dated someone with a different background to you. Maybe you've never dated someone who likes Marmite. It can just be a change in what you think is normal or what you've always been doing. It can also be rethinking how you approach romance and your romantic life in general. So if you're in a relationship, rethinking what you and your partner do for fun, maybe doing something a little bit different. It can also be in terms of your creativity, Capricorn, that you're sort of getting quite unconventional with your art, with Uranus being there, and rethinking again what you think are the rules and what's normal when it comes to art. Maybe you're going to make a piece with one of those like lemons in a glass that means something, and I don't know what it means, but you know what it means, that kind of thing. We have a new moon in Virgo on the 9th. Not on the 9th, in the 9th. New moon in Virgo in your 9th house, opposite Saturn in your 3rd. There can be a new beginning when it comes to your education. Maybe you're beginning a new degree, a new diploma, you're starting fresh back at school. Some of you are deciding you're going to commit to learning something, learning a language. You're going to be planning your next big trip. You could be traveling. The opposition to Saturn being your ruler, I feel like you are figuring out what's comfortable for you when it comes to your studies, when it comes to your education, when it comes to your travel plans, or even when it comes to your worldview and what you see in the world. I think a lot of you may have felt a little bit mentally restricted at times with Saturn in your 3rd, a little bit closed-minded at times as well, or maybe you have felt a little bit mentally heavy at times. This new moon is an opportunity to perhaps open up to new adventures, new horizons, and try something new or adventurous in your life, Capricorn. Maybe plan a trip, or maybe commit to studying something, or be open to looking at the details when it comes to your beliefs, and maybe see where you have been too restrictive there, or maybe see where you could be more committed instead to studying something or learning something. Mars enters your 7th house on the 4th. This is going to be a bit of a longer transit than usual because Mars is going to retrograde. Mars will retrograde in your 6th house, mind you, in December, but will retrograde back into, not your 6th house, your 8th house. But will retrograde back into your 7th house in January, and will be there until April of 2025. So this is a longer transit than usual for you because of the retrograde, but Mars going into your 7th house. So on one hand, this can bring a lot of action, a lot of energy when it comes to your relationships, more social, spending more time with your partner, doing more activities with your partner, pursuing relationships as well. You can be the pursuer in relationships. You can have more passion for your partner. It can also bring friction and arguments with close relationships, whether they're romantic or not. Close one-on-one relationships can fall victim to the irritation of Mars. You might just find yourself being more irritated with your partner, maybe what they're doing in the home. Maybe something comes up with the kids and you're just thinking, why did you do it that way? It's that kind of irritation. You might also be more assertive with your partner and say, actually, no, I'm not comfortable when you do that. Actually, no. I don't think that's a good idea. You can just find yourself being a bit more assertive when it comes to relationships, Capricorn. Mercury enters your 9th house again because Mercury was there in August for a brief stint on the 9th, and you might find yourself thinking more about the world. You think more about spirituality, religion, what does it all mean? You might feel more interested in philosophy. You could have some really lively discussions with other people, lively debates. You'll probably come across quite well, Capricorn, with Mercury in Virgo in the 9th. I'd say you could probably win most debates with this particular transit. So if you're in a debate or you have to make a speech, great time to deliver it under this particular transit. There's a lunar eclipse in your 3rd house on the 17th. Pay attention, because this is going to be the first in a series of 7 eclipses up until 2027. A lunar eclipse in the third house can bring changes, fated changes, significant changes when it comes to your siblings, the lives of your siblings. There can be some changes going on there. There can be significant changes happening in your neighborhood, your local community, the community that you're in. It can also be changes with your car. You can be letting go of your car, selling a car, buying a car. It can be a fated short distance trip that you take that may change your life somehow, even if it seems subtle at first. And it can also be wrapping up a period of study, or deciding that you're wanting to study a language or studying something that is going to be part of your destiny for whatever reason. Sometimes things happen that are part of our destiny with eclipses that we don't fully understand there and then, which is why it is important to pay attention to the themes that come up. But with this being in your third house, I do think that you could probably see a significant shift in the life of a sibling, a neighbour. Maybe one of your neighbours is moving, maybe one of your siblings is moving, maybe something significant is happening in their lives and you're a bystander to this. Maybe for some of you, you're getting a certification for something you're studying. So when there were eclipses, for example, for me in my third house, I remember that I went and did courses in Reiki, for example, and that's been a big part of my life ever since, that I could not have foreseen before. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have known that. But it has been an absolutely big part of my life, and it continues to be. So it might be something like that for you as well, Capricorn. Something you're learning. You're taking a course that is going to help you with your destiny. You might not just necessarily know how just yet. So other things happening for you, Capricorn. We have a shift of the planets into Libra. For you, this is your 10th house. Venus is in your 10th house from August until the 22nd of September. This is really positive for work, really positive for work recognition, good relationships with people you work with or in positions of authority. The sun enters that sector on the 22nd, putting your focus and your energy into your career, making some advancements with your career. It can also be with Mercury entering that sector that you are having some really good conversations at work. I think with the South Node being in play, I don't know if you're running into someone that you used to work with, or reconnecting with someone you used to work with, or going back to an old job, returning to work, or something like that. But it feels like reconnection professionally from the past, and maybe letting go of some baggage professionally too, maybe doing things differently, or reconnecting as well with a natural talent career-wise, or bringing a natural talent of yours into your career, Capricorn. But that's what I have for you. Talk to you soon. Hi Aquarius, welcome to September 2024 and what it means for your sign. So Aquarius, your ruling planet, or at least your modern ruling planet, Uranus, is going retrograde. And up until early 2025, you're going to be rethinking and redefining what you consider normal or what you consider the status quo when it comes to your living situation and your family. So for a lot of you, Uranus going through Taurus has coincided with significant changes, shake-ups, rearrangements, and a little bit of surprise here and there when it comes to your home and your family and your living situation. So this can be unexpected moves here and there, unexpected relocations, uncertainty with a family member, a bit of up and down with a family member, a bit of up and down on where you want to live, where you're living, shake-ups within the home and who's living in it, significant changes, etc. So if these have been happening, you might be rethinking and reflecting what you consider normal when it comes to where you live, why you live there, who you live with. For some of you, you may be readjusting to a move. You might be readjusting to a bit of chaos and turmoil with redecorating, renovating, or changes with a family member. There can be changes a lot with who's living in your house. There can be changes with where you're living. But the retrograde period is more about reflecting and rethinking what you consider normal and what's working for you when it comes to your living situation and your relationships to your family. And you're really rethinking this because Uranus is your ruling planet. I think you're kind of, needing to readjust to what's happening with home and family changes quite a bit, and reconsidering, maybe through changes that have happened to you that you either didn't anticipate or you didn't necessarily advocate for. You may actually be thinking, oh, this works a bit better. That could be something as simple as moving and thinking, moving because your partner had to move for jobs and you've had to move with them, and then thinking, well, actually, there's parts of this that I quite like. There's parts of this that quite suit me. And then also thinking maybe there's parts of this that you don't want. So, considering what changes need to happen there. Pluto leaves your sign on the 1st of the month as well, temporarily, mind you, and re-enters your 12th house. I just want to touch for you real quickly on Pluto having gone through your sign since the very beginning of this year. For you, Aquarius, there's profound changes afoot. I wouldn't be surprised if with Uranus retrograde in your 4th, there may have been changes in your family because of you. So maybe pregnancies, births, relocating, moving, changes in your relationships, that type of thing. You might have been really changing your life because you feel like you need to have more power or control over the direction you're going in. And that can sometimes, is the expression, upset the apple cart or something like that, but it can sometimes upset, the way things have been ticking along, the way things have been moving. You're more looking at your life from the lens of, well, what works for me? What's true to who I am? What type of person do I want to be? What type of relationship do I want to have? What type of career do I want to have? Do I feel aligned with this anymore or not? And so a lot of you have been making significant changes with Pluto in your sign. Now that it's re-entered Capricorn, it's kind of a breather, but it is in the house of endings. You might have to let go of some stuff in here. You might find yourself a bit, for want of a better word, because I feel this gets overused quite a bit, you might feel a bit triggered. You might have to let go of some past pain, past betrayals maybe. You might have to let go of some grudges, grievances. You might have to go through some old patterns that might be unconscious to you, so they might actually be dredged up with Pluto, whether that is through an experience in work, a power struggle in work. Pluto rules your 10th. Whether that is a power struggle through an authority figure, changes with parents. You might just simply find, Aquarius, that you're really going over some old patterns from the past, or noticing patterns, or being very honest about yourself of what you need to change and what you need to let go of internally in order to thrive. So if there is a self-limiting belief or self-sabotaging behavior in your life that you become glaringly aware of, this may be time that you're letting it go. There's a new moon in Virgo for you happening on the 3rd, and this is in the 8th house. So for some of you, this can be a new financial arrangement with somebody else, a joint financial relationship, whether that's a business relationship, whether that is a business partnership, whether that is money that you receive through other people, the government, grants, things like that. You might be beginning a new chapter with those themes in mind. So maybe you're getting a grant, and Saturn is opposite this in your 2nd house, so you're having to figure out the financial details. You're making a financial commitment on your end. It can also be that perhaps this is an agreement that is going to require you to make long-term payments or pay something off over the long term. It can also be the beginning of a new intimate relationship in your life. And I think it's one where you would need to be quite honest about your values in the long run if you're looking to connect with someone on an intimate level. This new moon is ruled by Mercury in your 7th house of relationships. So if you've encountered somebody that you want to begin a relationship with, you may need to navigate something restrictive in the relationship, something that might slow it down, hold it up. Or it can be that you are having to be very clear about your financial situation or their financial situation right off the bat. But I feel like for a lot of you, it's a very financial new moon. It's a very financial season, actually. It could be a time when you're really getting to grips with joint financial relationships, investors, governments, business partnerships. You're really figuring out what needs to change. You're putting a lot of energy, a lot of action into those as well, Aquarius. Mars is entering Cancer for you, so this is your 6th house, which means that you're going to be putting a lot of energy into your work. Mars is going to be in Cancer for quite a while, because although it goes into Leo in November and will be in Leo until January, it re-enters Cancer because of the retrograde in January. It will be there until April. So there's going to be a bit of back and forth on a work situation, what work you're putting in, what effort you're putting in. Health-wise, you may also be really focused on your health, your fitness, your wellness. It's very common when Mars goes through the 6th house that people sign up for marathons, they run marathons, they go to the gym most days, they really focus on their health and their well-being, sometimes to the point of burnout. Where Mars goes, you have more energy. So you might have more energy to be at work, to give more at work, to go to the gym more, to wake up at the screak of dawn and go cycling. But you might also find yourself burning out. This can also be an area where you notice some friction or challenge. That can be someone really irritates you at the gym. It can be that you're maybe not getting on so well with co-workers. There's some squabbles here and there, because Mars also rules confrontation, Aquarius. So be mindful of that. Someone might really irritate you at work in this time period. Be careful of challenging someone just because it may come up again later, which means it might be something that gets escalated. Or be careful of going too hard at something health-wise and giving yourself an injury that you might have to take some steps back with in the new year. Aquarius, just be mindful of that. There's a lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 17th. You want to pay attention to this because the lunar eclipse is going to be the first in a series of 7. Now, this is happening in your second house of finances. Again, there's an indicator here of financial changes this month. It can be letting go of a way of making money. It can just be financial changes because of a job change. It can also be changing the way that you work with money, the way that you use money, what you spend your money on, the type of money that you're making. It can be so many different things, really. It feels as though it's financial change, but with the conjunction to Neptune and the sextile to Uranus, I think for a lot of you that it can be something that's very positive when it comes to your home. So maybe, if you move, this saves you money on your living situation, or maybe you sell your home and you get more money than you expected or something like that. But I think with this particular lunar eclipse, your financial situation may be changing. With Saturn being in your financial sector, I think you're getting more serious about it. So, if you set some sort of financial goal for yourself in March, you might be noticing that this is paying off in September, or you just might be changing the way that you relate to money. I also think it can be that you are getting very clear and maybe shifting your values and what matters to you, Aquarius, as well, with this particular lunar eclipse. But the way that I see it for most of you is that you could actually be changing the types of things you're spending your money on. This lunar eclipse is ruled by Neptune, but also by Jupiter, and Jupiter is in your 5th house. Some of you could be spending money on your children. Some of you could be spending money on a creative pursuit or your love life as well. Your financial situation could change because of your love life, is one way this may play out as well, Aquarius. Or a pregnancy or a birth as well. We do have the Sun entering Libra on the 22nd. Venus is in Libra from August right up until the 22nd. So Venus is in Libra till the 22nd, the Sun enters there on the 22nd. We have a bit of activity happening in your 9th house of travel. For a lot of you, with Venus going through Libra from late August until the 22nd, if you're looking for love, you may find love with people who have different backgrounds to you, from different countries. You might meet people at your university or your college, or these might be people that you're socializing with. It can also be that you yourself are going traveling, or you're focused on traveling from the Sun. You could have more opportunities to travel. You could have more opportunities to study, to expand your horizons, to take adventures, whether they be of the mind or literally. But with the South Node there, you can reconnect with people socially that maybe live abroad or live in different countries, or you knew at university, or you can reconnect with people you've known in past lives that maybe you have a sense of deja vu, of recognition with the South Node being in play here. But I do think a lot of you could reconnect to people you used to study with, go to university with, college with, or you could be traveling to places that you've been before as well, Aquarius. So that is what I have for you for September. I hope you have a great month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Pisces, welcome to September for your sign. So Pisces, right off the bat, we have a lot of outer planet activity this month. Uranus retrograde in your 3rd house. Uranus in retrograde is a time to rethink and redefine what you consider normal within the parameters of that house. So you might be rethinking and reconsidering what's normal to you when it comes to your involvement in your community, the way that you communicate, how you communicate, your relationship to your siblings, your neighbours, how you get around, your transport, your commute. It might also be how you think. You're maybe reconsidering what's the norm in terms of how you think. If your thoughts have become a bit stuck in patterns, you might be wanting to shake those up. You're readdressing and rethinking these areas and what you considered normal, or just reflecting on the changes that have occurred and sort of how you're adapting to them and taking a breath to think about, what you've learned there, or how it's changed your perspective of that area. For example, maybe with Uranus in your third house, you've got some unconventional neighbors and they've really changed the way that you think or socialize, or maybe for some of you, you've got involved in a rather different group in your local community that's really expanded your horizons. Whatever the case may be, Pisces, I think for a lot of you, it's worth questioning what you consider normal when it comes to those areas. You might even be rethinking your relationship to a sibling or a neighbor because of changes that have occurred. With Pluto re-entering your 11th house on the 1st, this is the final hurrah of Pluto going through the 11th. It's been there since 2008. It's been in and out of Capricorn and Aquarius over the last couple of years. This is the closing out of an old cycle when it comes to friendships, when it comes to social connections. And interestingly, I just wanted to share this because I'm a Pisces rising, but it didn't dawn on me until I started to talk that I dreamt last night when Pluto re-enters the 11th house. I dreamt last night of old friends that I had met during the Pluto and Aquarius cycle and had been very badly hurt by in the Pluto and Aquarius cycle. And last night I had a dream about those old friends, and I told them in the dream, even though we've not been connected for quite a while, I told them that I didn't want their presence in my life anymore, which was very odd. I woke up thinking, what a weird dream. But that's Pluto re-entering the 11th house. You can sort of readdress old issues or power struggles or betrayals or traumas or karma when it comes to friendships, when it comes to old friendships, when it comes to patterns in friendships or social connections, social relationships, that type of thing, and also wishes. So Pluto's re-entering this cycle. This transit is happening in your 11th house, Pluto's re-entering here. You might be rethinking and reconsidering what is very true to you when it comes to the friendships that you have, the social company that you keep, the experiences that you've had since 2008 when it comes to friends, your social life, teams, groups, causes, things that you believe in. That could all have changed quite a bit. And you're being very honest with yourself. This might be a time when you do end a friendship. This might be a time when you remove yourself from a group or someone leaves your life as a friend or in a group or a team member. There could be a power struggle in a team, but this feels like it's closing out and you're being very honest and you're being very authentic about what needs to change, Pisces, with Pluto re-entering this sign for you. And your vision of the future may also change because maybe you're being honest with yourself and you're thinking, okay, I think I want something different to what I thought. And it's okay to change your mind. With Uranus and Pluto both having pretty seismic activity early September, you might change what it is that you want because it's not true to who you are anymore, or you might be reflecting on it. There's a new moon in Virgo opposite Saturn in your first house. The new moon in your relationship sector probably is a really good time to set intentions about what you want from your relationships. A lot of you may enter a new relationship at this time, or a new relationship may begin in your life. It could be a romantic partner, it could be a business partner, it could be a best friend. But I think with Saturn being in your first house, you're probably very serious about yourself and your life. And I think if you're entering a new relationship, it could be somebody older, or it could be somebody who's quite serious, or someone who's quite seasoned, or someone you could see long-term potential with. I think you're being pretty serious about what you deserve and quite realistic about what you need as well. So, you're probably going to begin a relationship at this time with someone where you're, asserting boundaries right out the bat, or you're being very particular about it, because Virgo is a very particular sign. But I could see a lot of you starting a new relationship at this time. The ruler of this new moon, Mercury, is in your 6th house, so this might be someone you meet through work, or someone you meet in a 6th house fashion. So in the service industry, restaurants, the gym, even health industry, at the doctor's office, or just in your everyday work and your everyday routines or something like that with the 6th house. So It could be someone providing you a service as well, or you could be beginning a new professional relationship in your life as well, Pisces. Again, whatever the case may be, you may have to set boundaries in place from the get-go. It's something that I would definitely see with this. Mars enters your 5th house on the 4th, which is putting a lot of emphasis on your love life as well. This is a longer term Mars transit than usual. Mars will be in your 5th house until November. Mars goes into your 6th house in November and will retrograde in your 6th house in December, re-enter your 5th in January, and will leave in April of 2025. So this is a long-term transit of Mars in your 5th house. Now, where Mars goes, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of action. This can mean there's a lot of dating, a lot of romance, a lot of romantic activity. It can also mean that you are more creative, you're more in pursuit of your hobbies, your passions, you're having more fun, you've more energy for fun. It can also be that where Mars goes, there's irritation and a bit of friction at times. So you could maybe have a bit of friction with someone you're dating. You could maybe have a bit of friction with your children, with Mars being the 5th house. Or if you're pregnant, it can be that there's maybe some irritation at how much you're having to spend. Mars rules your 2nd house of money. You might have to spend more money on your children or on your creative activities, and that could be a source of irritation. But I think for a lot of you with Mars in your 5th house, this is bringing a lot of passion for fun, a lot of passion for romance, a lot of passion. Oh my gosh, a lot of passion. Sorry, I sounded so Northern Irish there. A lot of passion for fun and romance and play in your life, more energy for that. But also, as I say, it can bring irritation with people, maybe that you're dating, or it can bring irritation with your children, or it can bring creative irritation, that sort of smashing the painting that you've been painting for days onto the floor because you don't like it anymore, that kind of thing. But it is part of a longer term transit. Mercury enters Virgo on the 9th. Your 7th house of relationships will be there until the 26th. This is really positive. So Mercury being retrograde in this sector in August, you may have heard from an ex, or heard about an ex, or reflected on your relationship with an ex, or there could have been miscommunication in a current relationship, mishaps with communicating with others, and you've now thought about it, readdressed it, maybe reframed it, and you can move forward and see some positive communication in that sector going forward. So it's easier to communicate with a partner. It's easier to communicate your needs to your partner, the details with a partner, or with just people in general, one-on-one relationships. It's easier to reach an understanding and communicate effectively with people in your life, Pisces, which is nice. The lunar eclipse is the star of the show this month. I don't know why I didn't lead with this for you, because it's in your sign. But there was so much happening this month, Pisces. The lunar eclipse in your sign, you are going to be making some very significant changes. Now, if you think back to March 2024, so 6 months ago, did you set any new intentions for yourself personally, physically, aesthetically, a personal goal? So the lunar eclipse is happening in your 1st house, which is to do with your appearance. For me, for example, I started my Invisalign treatment a couple of weeks after that new moon in my 1st house, and they're actually coming off 2 days before the lunar eclipse. So it can be a physical change. Saturn's in the 1st house, which is why I mention it. That's to do with teeth. It can be a physical change for you. It can be an image change, a glow up, taking better care of yourself, wanting to take better care of your health, really wanting to be true to how you live your life, who you are, who you want to be. Maybe stepping into a new identity of sorts for you, Pisces. People are probably going to notice you more. You're going to be in the spotlight more. I think for a lot of you with Neptune conjunct this eclipse, it's probably going to be stepping into more Piscean energy. So looking more ethereal, mystical, magical, Piscean, wearing more Pisces colors like blues and teals and turquoises and things. Or just wanting to make the kind of changes physically that reflect how you feel your best. So whatever that is for you. It's worth noting that Jupiter is the traditional ruler of this eclipse and is in your 4th house. So for a lot of you, this eclipse could mark a change in your home or living situation, or your family life. So maybe some of you are becoming mothers for the first time, or just again, maybe some of you are moving into your home, your own home, your dream home. Maybe some of you are really focused on making financial changes or just very personal changes in your life. And this is the first in a series of 7, right up until 2027. So these changes are going to be affecting your personal first house and your relationship seventh house. So changes in how you live and how you relate to others are going to be very significant over the next few years. So pay attention to this one. It might give you some clues, Pisces, as to what is changing. So for you this month, there can be a lot of personal changes and relationship changes as well. Through key relationships that you meet, that you have, that you let go of, etc. Now the Sun enters your 8th house, Venus is there until the 22nd, the Sun enters your 8th house on the 22nd. So we have a bit of 8th house activity this month. Mercury enters there on the 26th. And this is about joint financial relationships with others and also your intimate life. You're probably seeking more financial balance in joint financial endeavors. This could be a time when you're filing your taxes. This could be a time when you're getting a mortgage, going through your joint financial relationships with a fine-tooth comb and looking over the details with Mercury. I think for a lot of you, you could, with Venus and the South Node, reconnect with an old intimate relationship or a soulmate of sorts. It could also be that you are paying off debt or letting go of an old financial relationship, a joint financial relationship, or clearing out some debt of some kind with the South Node. You're very focused on that. And it can also be that perhaps you are, with the solar eclipse coming up in October, setting yourself up for a new joint financial relationship with somebody else. So whether that's a partner in your romantic relationships, in your business relationships, with the government, etc. I think a lot of you are setting up for a new financial relationship in October, and the Sun going through that sector could be really exposing where you need to put your energy. I also think with the 8th house, sometimes this can be a time when you do some very significant shadow work on what you need to let go of in terms of emotional baggage in order for you to feel your best. You know, what you need to let go of karmically can come up a bit in September as well. Letting go of old fears, letting go of old phobias, and maybe also reconnecting with, if you have had an interest in the occult or psychology before, maybe reconnecting with that interest with the South Node. Because the South Node can also be your natural talents and abilities, and Pisces are very psychic and very intuitive. So if you have an interest in those areas, you might actually find yourself reconnecting with those interests, Pisces. So overall, this is a very significant month for you. I will say, the lunar eclipse being in your sign, it's the first eclipse in your sign since I think it's 2017. So Vata changes are in store for you for sure. And this may be a month where maybe you feel a little bit emotional about these changes, or maybe you're feeling really positive about these changes. That eclipse is pretty positive. You know, it's happening in a sextile to Uranus. You might be feeling kind of liberated, kind of inspired, kind of open to change. And it might also change the way that you think about yourself, or changing the way that you think about yourself may assist you in a positive transformation of self. But that's what I have for you, Pisces, and I'll talk to you soon.